Welcome to the Endurance Studio podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Turner. I'm an avid ultra-endurance cyclist, bikepacker, and runner, and I'm on a journey to learn and share everything I can about how people can push beyond their limits. This podcast will explore all aspects of endurance through conversations with people I find unique and interesting. There's always an amazing story of accomplishment and failure, and always something to learn. I run this podcast from an off-grid mobile studio I've created so I can travel to the guests and have authentic, in-person conversations because I believe in the importance and power of face-to-face conversations. This costs money to run, and you can support this podcast by becoming a sustaining member, liking, subscribing, commenting, and most importantly, sharing with your friends and family. If you're interested in advertising on the podcast, please contact me at theendurancestudio@gmail.com. Thank you for watching and listening. Before we jump into the podcast, I want to give a quick few seconds mention of a few products that I use that I think are just incredible products. Squirrel's Nut Butter is the first one. They make lube for bikepacking, cycling, and running and ultra running. It's just an incredible product. It's locally made in Flagstaff, Arizona, in the place I live, so that means a lot to me. It's manufactured here. And they ship out from Flagstaff, and it's just a superior product. I started using the saddle butter product for bikepacking, and it was a complete, absolute game changer for me. The saddle butter has tea tree oil and peppermint in it, which helps keep the nasty funk down when you're on multi-day bikepacking trips, and it's antimicrobial, so it keeps the fungal growth down, and it smells pretty good too with the peppermint. It's an amazing product. I've also used their other anti-chafe lubes for running, and stuff just works. It's a fantastic product. I am an ambassador for Squirrels. Love the product. Wanted to be an ambassador for them and wanted to spread the lube love for them. So I do have a discount code for you on that. It's in the description. Also, it's 10% off on all the lubes if you use code TIMBERFRIENDS with a capital T. So that's TIMBERFRIENDS. Timber Friends with a capital T. Timber is the name of their squirrel mascot. So go check them out. Squirrel's Nut Butter, game changer. And another company I'd like to mention quickly is Kahtoola. Based out of Flagstaff, Arizona, they make exceptional crampons, shoe gaiters, and running traction. And I've been doing a lot of time running in the winter this year and on snowy and icy areas in and around Flagstaff. And it's the first time I've ever used shoe traction. And let me tell you, it was a complete game changer for me. Amazing stuff. And we will get into that on the episode that we have Chris on about some of the technology and engineering that goes into the Kahtoola design products. I also use the gaiters for bikepacking and running to keep the rocks and dirts and debris and stuff out of my shoes. So amazing products. Go check them out, Kahtoola.com. And the last one I want to mention is Dispersed bikepacking gear. Andrew and Katie Strimke are incredible people. They're incredible endurance athletes, both of them. And they make really exceptional bikepacking bags. Dispersed.bike is the website there. Andrew's done the Tour Divide. He did the Triple Crown, which is Arizona Trail Race, Colorado Trail Race, and the Tour Divide, all on a single speed, all in the same year, with bags that he made. So if you're going to buy bikepacking bags, if I'm going to buy bikepacking bags, I'm going to buy them from someone who has gone through the gauntlet of bikepacking and knows firsthand how to make a excellent bikepacking bag. So go check them out. They're great people. They make a fantastic product, and support them if you can. It's dispersed.bike. Today's guest is a solo river runner, rock climber, ultramarathon runner, and entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of Squirrel's Nut Butter, a company based in Flagstaff, Arizona that makes the world's best all-natural anti-chafe and restorative skin salve. I'd like to welcome to the podcast a man who I consider a lube legend, Chris Thornley. It's, you know, I have to say, so we're here in the, you graciously let me take over your front office area.
I was going to say, thanks for flying me out. And your studio, man, you have dumped a lot of money in here. Your sponsor money must be cranking.
It's
obviously.
That YouTube money is something else.
Anyhow, nice work.
But I have to say, it's unbelievably quiet in here. It's a very quiet workspace.
It is. It really is. Mm-hmm.
I work in printing. You know, my full-time job is in printing, and it is just like I'm always yelling everywhere I go because it's equipment's running and it's very intense, you know. And here it's just very quiet, and I have to kind of lower. You know, I came in here when we first met, and I was kind of
thinking we're gonna be loud.
Well, I didn't know what to expect, and my volume's always like turned up a little bit more. But it's a very quiet facility. So you do all of the packaging and everything here on site?
Yeah, we do everything here. And even during manufacturing, it's incredibly quiet. The loudest part is when you're prepping the tins. When you're uncapping the tins, that's when it's actually the loudest. Otherwise, it's pretty quiet.
Yeah. I heard you like kind of shaking something earlier, and it smelled like chocolate or cocoa or something.
Yeah. So I was breaking up the cocoa blocks, the cocoa butter blocks. Use a Fred Flintstone style. Use a chisel and a sledgehammer and break it into our measurable for the menu.
Huh. So, and that's in the anti-chafe. Chafe.
Yeah. Cocoa butter's in all of our products. Coconut oil and cocoa butter and vitamin E are in all of our products. And then some of our products will have beeswax or candelilla wax.
Okay.
And then some of our product has tea tree oil and peppermint oil. But yeah, they all have
even the saddle butter. Mm-hmm. Really, because I could smell it a lot more. I could like smell it in the regular all natural.
That's awesome that you bring that up, because the plant-based candelilla wax that we use in the saddle butter and the compostable tube anti-chafe has a higher melting point, but it also has a much more dominant fragrance. And so it doesn't let the cocoa butter come through the blend. And so it's funny that you say that. You smell the candelilla wax before we put the tea tree oil and the peppermint oil in. You smell the candelilla.
Right.
And it's funny because it actually kind of smells synthetic to me.
Okay.
Candelilla by itself, and it's plant-based wax. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very dominant.
Yeah.
All I can smell in the saddle butter is the peppermint. Really. Yeah. Peppermint's very dominant, and I don't mind that.
Right.
Like that was the first product that kind of introduced me to squirrels. Was the Dana Ernst, Pinions and Pines, bikepacking race.
Being. Yeah. Dana, oh my gosh.
How long have you two known each other?
I met him through Chris Cohn. Chris Cohn helped me start this business. He was my graphic designer and kind of the operation manager here. In the beginning.
Cool.
And he created the Squirrel image and did all the initial branding. So I met him. Chris was a big bike packer as well. And so I met Dana through Chris.
Nice. Yeah.
So a long time ago. Yep.
I think Chris designed some of the original logos for Pinions and Pines.
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
So cool. It's all. I've never met Chris, but I've heard of him and I've seen him on Strava, and I'm afraid to ride with him because he's really fast. Like he gives Dana a run for his money, and Dana gives me a run for my money. Yeah. So
Chris has a very competitive spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
He only knows one full throttle gear, you know?
That's why him and Dana get along so well.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to the saddle butter. At first I was a little like, I don't know. I had tried different products. The yellow and purple, kind of the lotiony based.
We can say it.
But I don't remember
chamois
what it was
butter.
called. Is that what it's called? Just chamois butter? Yeah. It's like BUT''R or something. Yeah. So I tried that, and it was just not, it just wasn't working. And I was going through this cycle of, I would hit about 100 miles and I would get like horrendous saddle sores, like to the point where I tried to push through stuff and it just didn't work. And I honestly thought it was kind of the end of my, like the limit of my cycling career, the pinnacle, like as far as I could go, you know? and I was trying to finish these races like Pinions and Pines, and just couldn't do it. And then I don't know, I finally tried the saddle butter, and then I kind of figured out, use it ahead of time before you, because I made the mistake of not pre-applying.
Yeah.
And that was once you get in past a certain point of no return, it seems. So I figured out like what works for me, and I know it's very individualized with saddles and saddle butter, and at least in the cycling community, it's hard to just say, hey, this will solve all your problems.
Right.
And I actually went to Dana and asked him, what do you do? How do you do this? We drove like 2 hours to a race, and I just picked his brain, and he gave me a few tips, and told me about the constant reapplying of the saddle butter, and it also depends on the sweat and the heat and all the other factors, right?
Sure.
But it changed everything. It was like a cheat code for bike packing.
Yeah.
Right. And then it transitioned for me into running. And ever since then, I'm like all in, right? With you guys. I'm like, this is a company, and they're in Flagstaff, and they're making it here, and it's just got the full package story for me. Right.
Yeah.
So that's when, Dana looped me in on Pinions and Pines, and we started to connect a little more, and I just like you guys even more and more that I meet you. You have a very small team.
Yes.
So you want to
There's
talk?
There's 3 of us here in the office.
I can't believe that.
Yeah. Rachel Marcino and Jade Wright, and myself when I'm not traveling. And then we have my finance and Amazon specialist out, Kevin Melnick. He lives out in Florida. And Annalise Norman is our graphic designer now that Chris Cohn left. She's out in Colorado. And then, of course, we have the famous Jen Laughlin, who lives down in the valley in Goodyear. Okay. And that's my team.
Yeah.
And we manufacture everything, final product, put the labels on, ship it out all right here in this building. And it's absolutely unbelievable. We have a global reach. I'm not sure how many countries we're in, only because I don't keep track of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it truly is amazing.
Yeah.
How small and how much product we push out the door for such a small team. And it's not automated. The machine it's still handcrafted. It's still a human being in front of a machine pouring into each container. But the machine itself, we set the controls for the open cycle, how long the closed cycle is. But otherwise it's a human being above every single container that we pour.
And that simply just controls the volume
yes.
Of lube that goes into each container.
Correct.
Based on so you can have some consistency there.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a big jump to go fully automated. It really is financially. And we're able to, it was really important for me in the beginning to continue to be kind of hands-on myself in the batter, if you will. It's a pretty finicky blend using natural ingredients, so it's very temperature sensitive. The cooling temps, how quickly it cools, we cool the product down. And so I didn't want to outsource it. And it was really important for me to provide jobs, even though there aren't very many jobs that I provide in Flagstaff, but that was important to me, to not outsource it.
Sure.
And it's amazing when I talk to companies where everything is made somewhere else and they're just come to work and they're in the office banging on the keys. And I think, wow, that's interesting. As long as I own the company, I just want to have my hands in the manufacturing.
Right.
I like that process.
Right. And do you feel like if it were outsourced, you would lose some control, quality control?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like when I'm in manufacturing, I'm pouring in the containers. I definitely visualize like where in the world this might go, who might use it, what kind of adventure they might be on. Is it a first world, I'm choosing to run 100 miles or ride my bike 300 miles. Like, that's cool. I prevented some saddle sores or some chafe. But when it gets into the other countries that are maybe more developing, and it's going on a prosthetic interface after an amputation, like that means a lot. Or hearing feedback that our product was used post radiation treatment for cancers, like that still gives me the goosebumps.
Yeah,
that's where it's all about. That's why I come to work.
For sure. Yeah, I mean,
that's real. The athletes we just pushed, are in predominantly into trail ultra, which is my background. But it's really just for human beings with skin. It was created for damaged skin by Stacy Thornley,
right?
For eczema, and yeah, it's amazing. It's so simple. And
yeah, I didn't even realize that you had a lot of applications there.
Yeah,
like giving relief to people who really need it, who maybe can't find a different product. Mm-hmm. Not that this is in any way the same thing as someone who like has an amputated limb, but I also used it I had like a dermatitis on my eyelids from excessive sweating. I think I couldn't really figure out what it was. I went to the dermatologist.
From wiping that area, or
I think from sweating and then it drying out. And then and then I would wash the salt off. Like on the bike trainer, I would sweat excessively. Okay. And for some reason, it was only during the months that I would be on the bike trainer. But anyway, I developed like this flaking on my eyelids that I couldn't get. And I went to the dermatologist and they gave me a prescription and it didn't work. Nothing really worked.
Yeah.
And then I used some of the squirrels, and not the peppermint stuff though.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But I used the regular, and it literally was the only thing that could give me relief. And it had kind of like a staying. That seems to be the difference for me, is it has this like staying power. Like it kind of is a coating.
Yeah. At first I thought you said sting.
No, staying power.
It stays.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's more consistently.
Right.
It's more, and I think that's some of the waxes and stuff in there that it has more longevity, I guess is another way to say it, right? In all these different applications, whereas the other things I've tried, they don't. So, I mean, that's really cool. So let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
Let's go backwards. What year did you start the company?
2015. Stacy Thornley created it in the kitchen for eczema. No intention of starting any kind of company. For a family member that probably chooses to remain anonymous and not singled out. Mm-hmm. So we were pouring the product into tins, and we had some stickers made. Maybe we could Stacy was exploring Etsy, putting the product on Etsy, and so we kind of went on to Etsy and looked at all the mama salves, and it was just flooded. Like, how are we going to stick out in that market for mothers making salves in their kitchens? So we gave the product to one of my climbers. I used to own a tree service, Agassiz Cutting, Brian Marshall, incredible sawyer and tree climber and human. And we gave it to him to give to his partner for her skin. And at the time it had almond oil in it, and it had some other essentials like lang lang and sweet orange. And so Squirrel, it was just sitting in their medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and Squirrel ran out of his chamois butter and decided, hey, I think I'll just use this instead. It looks slippery and it looks natural, so I'll give it a go. So we went mountain biking in Sedona, came back to work for the tree service, and said, that stuff is absolutely amazing. I was like, Squirrel, how funny would it be to call this stuff Squirrel's nut butter? That's where the possessive S comes from, in Squirrel's nut butter. So again, I come from the trail ultra world. As a kid, I ran ultras, and so as my brother is the race director of Western States, and our really good friend Matt Keys, he was given a talk to, it was called the Veterans Panel. So he was talking to this big crowd in 2015, Western States, like 2 days before the race or 3 days. And it was all the veterans telling these newbies what to do, nutrition and whatnot. And Matt Keys, he was, I think, the last speaker. And one of the things he said to everyone was, whatever you do, don't try something new on race day. And we walked out. I'm just like, Stacy created a salve, and it's pretty good for anti-chafe. And we gave him the 10. And he used it for the first time without trial at Western States in 2015. That was his 9th finish. Matt Keys now has 10 finishes there. And so it's just funny when people will say, I'm not going to try it. I'm not going to try it. I'm going to, I'll try it in training, but not on race day.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's fine. I understand, but you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love being able to tell that story. And
it's like, well, epic pass or epic fail when you try something on race day. Right?
So did you tried it in training?
I don't remember. I think I might have tried it out of pure desperation.
Yeah.
Because I had gotten to a point where I was like, well, I'm going to just try whatever at this point.
So are you actually getting to the boil phase? Or,
yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty lame.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty graphic. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I had, my chamois shorts were sticking, there was blood involved. It was not good. I mean, yeah. So
I used to race bikes.
Yeah.
Started out I think it maybe in 6th grade, I did a triathlon that was running, riding, and then kayaking down this river. And my brother he made this kayak like in Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts or Webelos or something, this foldable kayak, plywood and canvas and stuff.
Yeah.
That was the thing I paddled it during the race. But I ended up really getting into the feeling of a road bike, and this is back, in the 80s, how there just seemed to be a direct drive from your input to your output. There was no squish, 110 PSI tires, and just like the road is smooth. And I just really dug that. And it's funny because I ended up really excelling at criteriums through college, which is really different because I'm not a fast twitch person, but I was really good at the sprint, and I loved how tight it was.
What is a criterium?
A criterium is just like lots of laps, very tight. The pack is usually really tight, and you're just going through a lot of different turns, and you might have like an hour criterium where you're just going out for an hour. And then they finally give you the bell lap, and then it's like, okay, now we're gonna hit it.
Okay.
And I always kind of wanted to be the mountain climber. I watched Tour de France and everything. I was like, I want to be the big mountain climber, and I really never was. But the criterium I excelled at. Point of bringing all this up, I asked my brother, hey, do you want to ride our bikes from Canada to Mexico? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I don't ride, but I'll go buy a bike. So we did. Bought a touring bike, triple chain ring in the front, and nice big and heavy thing. And I had this, at the time, steel frame racing, low level racing bike. So we're riding Canada to Mexico and self-support on the roads and just kind of tootling around, visiting relatives, grandparents, and whatnot. And I got this boil in Northern California in the near Redding area, and it got so huge. I didn't use any product either, but I just could not sit down. It was like, what is this thing? And we were still banging out 100 miles a day and just basically standing up. And that's the only time I've had a boil from riding. And it was that whole, you're not able to get the chamois clean because we're day after day after day. We do our best to clean our chamois and but it's still not, laundering properly. So when I created the saddle butter, I thought about that. Like this definitely needs tea tree oil, which is an antimicrobial, antifungal, antibacterial, every anti thing that of stuff that grows on your butt. And then I thought, it'd be nice to have a little like potpourri for your that area. So a healthy dose of peppermint. But yeah, it's funny. All those days of riding, the use of a chamois butter, if you will, wasn't it wasn't common.
Yeah. So as a kid, what got you into all of these things? Were you kind of an outdoorsy kind of kid? Did your parents encourage it? I mean, what like you said, you were an ultra runner. So what years was this?
So my brother is 6 years older, and my sister is 9 years older than myself. I'm the third to come along, and we moved. I was born in San Jose in the Bay Area,
Okay.
South Bay. My parents divorced. We moved out to Cool, California, in the foothills west of Lake Tahoe, east of Sacramento. I think it was 1977, 78, something like that. And it was totally different than it is nowadays. Obviously, the whole cell phone thing and the social media and maybe the awareness of predators and bad people and all that was just kind of like, I was definitely cage free. And my parents, they didn't have me on a leash at all, which I found amazing value of being raised like that, to be able just to go explore the outside, the outdoors, even camping without my brother, things that parents wouldn't do now in today's world, of kind of the awareness. And maybe there are more predators and more bad people. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was nice to just be able to go explore and go into the canyons around, the American River canyons, and go fishing and just kind of lose yourself in the day and just make sure you're back at night before it gets dark. And if you did that, then you gave, my parents, no reason to be concerned. Like, I'm making good choices and everything. So,
yeah.
But I definitely, so my sister was out of the house really early in my life. That was a significant age difference between us.
Mm-hmm.
She was very athletic, played field hockey, which is, I don't know if it's even around now, but it's like ice hockey, except you use a different stick, and it's played like on a soccer field. And she was incredibly competitive. So she went off, got married, and so then I had Craig, and he was definitely a big runner, track, cross country, very competitive, did very well, state, and he was the local races he would win, and went off to the University of Oregon, tried to get on the team and couldn't make it, and realized, maybe I do come from a little school and I was a big fish in a little pond, but in the real world, I can't even make the team on this darn, and the U of O is the U of O, hard to get on the team.
Yeah.
But definitely his influence of he was a big backpacker and definitely runner, and we'd go out when we first moved to Cool, we were camping with our stepbrothers, my dad's sons, Jeff and Michael, and Craig and myself, and we went down. We knew nothing about Western States, so we went down into this canyon just to go camping overnight, and we literally just camped right on the trail in the bottom of this little creek drainage. And I think that might have been 1978. And all of a sudden, this dude and this pacer, these two guys came running by, and they were asking us about an aid station, and we didn't know what they're talking about. Like, what aid station? They're like, yeah.
Whoa.
And so my brother did all the talking. Everybody else was older than myself, so I'm just kind of sitting there, deer in the headlights. But I'm just kind of staring at the dude's legs, like, man, he's so fit. His legs, I remember them being just really hairy, and dirty, and they just looked so strong. And his eyes, he was in this space that I was like, wow, what is that? Like, I just remember the gaze in the dude's eyes. So it turns out they were running from Squaw Valley to Auburn. That was Western States.
Yeah.
And, throughout the night, more people were coming through. And at that time, I don't know how many people were in the race back then. It's maybe 20 or something, 14. I don't know. So it's not like it is nowadays. So that kind of really, that had a big impact on me, just being like connecting with that experience was something weird, even though I was so young and I wasn't doing the talking, but it was just like, man, they're in a mind space that's different, his eyes in particular.
He's in a different dimension.
Yes. And I didn't know what that meant, but I was like, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that just really has always stuck with me.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
That imprinted on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. Like I'm almost like I can, I'm 54 now. I don't have a lot of bandwidth left, but some images in your life stick. And that is just that particular thing is so vivid, still that memory.
Yeah.
And not so much the details around it, just like the look, his body, like, what? He's got 80 miles on him. And
yeah.
He's been running all day.
And unless you've done it, I don't think you can understand what it is to be that person.
Right.
You can't explain it to anyone.
Right.
It's hard to explain that, whatever that look is, or the flow state that he's in, or that runners are in, endurance, when you cross over past a certain time, you push through something, get into that zone. Yeah. Yeah. And so that was, then that was the beginning of your like ultra exploration.
Yeah. So I was still 8 years old. Mm-hmm. So then I think I got on the track team in 4th grade or something. And I enjoyed the movement or whatever, but we're just kind of stuck on the track, how it is. And then in 5th grade, my school had this 50-mile club. And so you kept track, and then they had a 50 for both running and then for reading. So I'm like, yeah, I can't read 50 books, but I can run 50 miles in the year, and you get a certificate,
Yeah.
You go up on during the assembly and like, oh yeah, congratulations, Chris, 50 mile, you made the 50-mile club. So I continued to rack that up in my 5th grade year. And I kind of got a little bit, like I just enjoyed being out there doing it. But towards the end of the year, my teacher was like, you're kind of closing in on 500 miles for the year. Are you going to make that? Is that a goal or whatever? I was like, I sure I can. Yeah. If I'm close, is that cool? But what was strange is I enjoyed just going out in the woods, and I didn't care whether I was walking, power hiking, or actually running. I wasn't competitive, but I enjoyed being out, and I didn't have to run with a friend. And that was really unusual, especially as a 5th grader. So it turns out I did get my 500 miles, and they made me a cool shirt, as cool as it can be in the 70s,
Yeah.
And then through, I think I ran my first sub 6-minute mile in 6th grade. And
wow.
Yeah, but I enjoyed the structure, tracking cross country, having a coach telling you what to do, how to train, whatever. It was always, you're running with the people, with your teammates or whatever. And then after practice, it was really common for me just to go out in the woods again and just continue. And it wasn't really so much for training, like I'm going to be the best. I'm going to kick everybody's butt in school. It was just this weird, comfortable place to go out. And I later on, as an adult, I realized if I'm doing a 100-mile race or, a double crossing in the canyon, it was like the first 5 hours, I'm almost wanting to be at that place where you do get to flow state. And the first 5 hours, I'm like, I'm not there. Like I need to be tired. I need to just kind of get in the groove. So it was like 5 hours is usually where it took to kind of get to feel tired and to enter that space. And then beyond that was just super cool. But, I never won. I wasn't very good in track and cross country. And I could do, I think, up to like 20 miles in a day, as a fifth grader, which is pretty crazy. And of course that's not legit, like, 8-minute mile pace, but like covering that was like, wow, I even realized that was pretty weird. I was an anomaly, not because of my fitness, just like, what are you doing, dude?
In fifth grade.
Yeah.
I mean, a cross country meet was a long ways in high school for me.
Yeah.
Like 3 miles.
Right.
Was like, oh, this is so far. This is so much further than all the track distances, right? So in fifth grade, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. And so my mom, she was a exercise fanatic, Carol Connor. She's she loved running. And she did jazzercise. She taught jazzercise, which is big back in the 80s and whatnot. I think it's still around. I'm not sure, but she was all into that
a few years ago. Yeah.
And she has quite the vinyl collection from back in the day when she would teach those classes. They would do it on vinyl record.
Oh, wow.
So she's got quite the collection of that stuff. I think she still has it. I hope. But it's funny. My brother and I would always kind of razz her. Instead of, we lived in this place called Auburn Lake Trails, which is a paved, gated community. It's super duper hilly. And she would always run these little cul-de-sacs, like to add miles. And we were always just like, why don't you just do a bigger loop? Like it was just so funny, but that's what she loved to do. And, and then she'd put, back in the day, there was this stuff called shoe goo that you could put on your tread to extend the life, so you could maybe get 1,000 miles out of the shoe, which is now like whoa, you lost all the cushioning.
Right.
So she was definitely a big influence as well in body movement and fitness and whatnot. And so my brother left at 6 years older than me, so I was still just starting middle school when he left the house. And so when he come back, we would still like do some backpacking and just kind of introduce me to that world, or keep that in my pocket. And so I've always enjoyed sleeping under the stars without a tent, just to see the sky pivot around. And I'm not afraid of the dark and things that are going to get me for some reason. I don't know, maybe because nothing's gotten me when I'm not in the tent. I don't feel like I need that protective barrier, which I think was great to instill as a young kid, which later on in life, we can talk about later, I was wanting to do an outdoor camp for kids because I thought that was such an amazing thing to get used to, camping out alone. So through high school, I only, I'm running track and training a ton, but I never broke the 5-minute mile. And I tried so hard, and I got 5 flat, and I was just like, 4:59 would just be great. I don't need,
So you were a little competitive in that sense.
In a numerical way, because I was just like a 3-hour marathon. It was just this random thing, a 3:01 is really cool. 2:59 is a little cooler.
Yeah.
Whether you're last place or not, it's that weird spot. But
sure.
And then when I was 18, so I did my first official race marathon, I think as a sophomore in high school. My folks, along with my cross-country coach, Dirk Korn, they decided, when I was a freshman, maybe that was too early to do an official marathon on the road. And so they had me wait until until I was a sophomore. And so it was California International Marathon, and I ran like right at 4 hours, and then ended up continuing to do more marathons and through high school, and ended up running a 2:59 my senior year, and then I ran my first 50 miler in high school, American River 50, and that was like 9 hours or something, and that was a pretty good day. And I was very nervous, the unknown, just like, wow, that's what's going to happen. You didn't know anything about nutrition. It was like, that was back in the rock hard power bar days, and just running, like everything was, it's so dialed now. Like
did you have a lot of peers doing this as well?
No.
Yeah, 50 miles in high school is.
Yeah, I was a whack job back then.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
even just doing running the marathon, like I was, there weren't many high school kids running marathons back then. So I looked like I was pretty awesome to get under 3 hours as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 50 mile, that was just, that was really weird, or unusual. And then so I do the 50 miler on Saturday, and then the next Wednesday we have a track meet, and I do the triple, the half mile, 2 mile, which felt really weird. Just like, 4 days later, like, wow, what are we doing? And I remember like my coach telling the other coaches and kids, like, hey, he just ran 50 miles on Saturday. And like, I kind of felt like this, like maybe I was doing something that was kind of cool, but at the same time, I'm like just total middle of the packer at the track meets and whatnot. I was like, man, it would be so cool to just win a race, like even if it was 2 high schools, and just be like, yeah, but that never happened.
Yeah. Going back to the 50, were you skeptical that you could finish it at that point with yourself? Was there hesitation?
I remember the family back then was big carbo load. You always had spaghetti the night before.
Carbo load.
Got a carbo load,
Yeah,
so we
right.
had spaghetti and all that stuff.
Right. I get really sick when I carbo load.
Do you?
Out. Yeah. It never ends well.
Yeah. Sick the next day during the
event.
event.
During the event, I feel terrible.
So I remember kind of feeling very, very quiet around the table at the restaurant. And my brother just kind of looked over at me and was like, why are you so scared? I was like, I don't know, because you got a 50-mile race tomorrow, and I've never done anything like that. But I was not embracing the unknown, which I've learned to totally do as an adult now. But the race went great. Finished, actually, might as well bring this story up. So Craig's at heard you went to the U of O and, all this stuff. He's the big runner. And, so he didn't make the team. And after college, he kind of got a little softer than he was when he was training really hard. Long story short, he's pacing me at American River 50 in the final climb out of the canyon. I started smelling the barn, and he's coming from U of O, so I will give him that. It's cool, and he had no heat training, and he's out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going fast. 9.5 hour 50 miles is not super fast. But I dropped him on the climb to the finish, which I love. Craig, I love bringing up this story, and I have to, because he's a badass runner and athlete. And but anyhow, I dropped him. Eventually, he missed my finish. Anyhow, yeah, that never happened again. Again, it was a hot day, and so he was just nuked from the heat. But
yeah, so I want to linger on the heat training a little bit. You mentioned it. My wife's actually doing that for Cocodona.
Yeah,
where she part of the last block of her training cycle is to go out. She's done with the long distances, and now she's doing. She'll go out and do runs, and then she'll go and get in the hot bath for like 45 minutes to have heat training. What was your heat training like when you mentioned that, or what did it become later on?
It wasn't back then,
right?
But it wasn't even anything that I was aware of. Later on, I think your body definitely needs to adapt, without a doubt, physically to the heat, so it just doesn't dump all of the sodium. It realizes to retain that. But I think there's a big mental component as well, that when you're feeling hot in training, to really not have it be a negative thing. Like, you have to somehow, like, I love this. Look at, this is great. I get to put water, douse myself, and everybody's in this heat. And to try to change that into a positive thing that you like. And it's really weird because I don't like living where it's hot. I don't like working when it's hot, but under effort, I love it when it's cranked.
What about sleeping? You just love a nice hot,
toasty,
sweaty bed?
No, I don't.
Most people don't.
But I have somehow tricked myself in a good way. Like, I love that added element of the heat, and just trying to learn to deal with it and really keep it as a positive thing somehow,
Yeah, this is sort of the through line with embracing the unknown. I think generally of endurance, like embracing the unknown of heat, because to a lot of people it's a foreign feeling to get that hot, and to get to a point where you're unsure if it's okay, or if you're not to an unsafe point, but there's definitely a zone where you're uncomfortable, but you're not to an unsafe heat stroke sort of point.
Right.
And then and the minute you embrace that, or with sleep deprivation, or with being out alone by yourself in the dark, like you had mentioned earlier, right. I think that's something I also want to linger on to a little bit more, is that first night when I'm out, no matter how many times I've done it, something inside of me, that when the sun starts to go down and I'm out there by myself, something inside of me says, go find shelter, go get safe. And I think this might be a hunter-gatherer survival instinct that's
right.
deeply baked in. Like,
right.
Go into the cave, get safe from the predators. You don't want to be out here by yourself, because historically it doesn't end well. Right. And so you fight through that the first night, or I do. I fight through it, and then it's fine after that. I just kind of am like, fine. If I'm hiking my bike and a mountain lion decides it wants to follow me, that's just going to be what it is.
Right.
I'm just going to try not to think about it, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. So you have this, it seems like you have this from a very young age, this ability to kind of embrace this, like actually welcome it in.
Yeah.
This unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. It's helped me throughout all aspects of my life, but back to the training stuff, really didn't like. I think because I wasn't competitive, I wouldn't like try to be blasting out the pace when it's hot, like you might do if you're actually winning the race, and you're just like, I'm gonna suffer more than everyone else to win this race, and maybe it would backfire if you're not heat adapted
right.
physically. So I think I had it easy, truly, because I really could naturally just back off. And if it's 100-miler, then just to know that as long as I stay awake, it'll be easier to move throughout the night.
Right.
And obviously your wife, doing a Kahtoola, you get many night cycles. And so knowing when to take it easy during the day, and maybe that's when you nap, Versteeg style, when it's super hot, like try to shut her down if you can, and then utilize the cooler times, to move. That Kahtoola, that's amazing. That's super cool.
I envy people that can do that. That can have the thought in that moment to be like, no, it's cool. I'm good. I don't need to catch up to that person in front of me.
Right.
I'm competitive naturally, I guess, but it always kind of works against me, Yeah. So I wish I could have that. It's cool, because I usually do better when I stop caring.
Right. Sure.
And but yeah, that's an interesting value to have in endurance sports, I think. So you did your 50, and then were you looking, did you have your sights set on some, what's the aftermath of the 50? Did you sign up for something else where you're like, I'm never doing this again, or I'm doing double this next time?
Yeah. So, coming out of high school, I went up to Humboldt State to get a degree in forestry, and I continued running. I was still riding competitively too. So I was doing both. And my rock climbing was, finally, Humboldt had some great climbing there. So I was kind of doing three things and embracing all three of them. But so I ended up doing, getting down in CIM, my first year in college. I got it down to 256. My training, I thought I was going in to run maybe a 248. I actually had some structured training on the track with mile repeats that had me looking like I could run under 250, but it just didn't happen that day. Ended up doing another 50 miler at Quicksilver 50 miler out by San Jose. That was cool. I really enjoyed that. And that was a lot more trail than American River 50, which was a lot of paved bike path for the first half, and then it moves to single track trail. And then I ended up doing qualifying for Boston Marathon, and I ended up doing Boston as a 19-year-old.
Wow.
And again, I was thinking I could go, maybe around 245, but coming from Arcata, didn't have any heat training at all, and it was a kind of a warmer day for Boston. It was a noon start then. I don't think they do noon starts now. I'm not sure. And back then there was no chip timing, so it was all gun. And at that time, I think there was maybe 7,000 or 8,000 actual participants with a bib, and then there would be about 3,000 bandits without a bib to add to the crowd. So the gun goes off. I'm like, holy cow, I'm at Boston. This is amazing. I'm here. I'm super fit. And it takes like 9.5 minutes just to get to the starting line. Or no, I'm sorry. My first mile was a 9.5 minute mile.
Because of the volume of
Because
people?
of the volume, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start like panicking, like, oh my gosh, I gotta, I just gave away a lot of time, and I'm not able to even run free yet. So the second mile, I remember what that is, maybe 7.5 minutes, and then finally it freed up, and so I overcompensated, and it's a downhill start. Boston rolls downhill, and so I just started ripping and did some sub 6 minute miles, which is way under pace of what I should be doing for a, like a 248, 245. And I ended up getting into town, into Boston proper, and just feeling completely cooked and like having to walk at Boston.
Oh.
Like, this is like the crowd's going crazy, and like I'm walking. Oh my gosh. So I jogged in and doing a 303, which I was very disappointed with my fitness. That's a very respectable time. But with my fitness, I just had bigger goals and went all the way over to Boston. It was my first big marathon with big crowds, and, getting to meet Bill Rogers in person and shake his hand. And then after that, I just stopped running. And really, I did ride competitively for a while, and then I just kind of focused on rock climbing, and that I took a long break from the running and the riding, and just focused on climbing, and college took me 5 years to get through. I struggled. I tried the 4-year pace, however many credits that is a semester, and that was just a little too much for my brain to soak in. I basically just skated through college to get the degree. Like I wasn't I wasn't a great student.
Mm-hmm.
But it was both. I needed to put some more effort in, especially the things like, like botany. I had to take twice. I failed the first time, but just like, going into a class like that, and not staying on the bus right off the bat and not getting the foundation down. And then the rest of the semester was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like I just completely lost it. And so that was a wake up of, wow, I'm doing this over.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting a B+ the next time, which I was super psyched with.
And this was, and you ended up with a degree in forestry.
I have a degree in forestry, a BS. Yeah.
Yeah. And the rock climbing seems to, I don't know much about climbing. I've been to a climbing gym a couple times, but it seems to be a very easy crossover sport for runners, cyclists, mountain bikers. Seems like there's an interconnection between these things. Outdoors maybe is what it is. But rock climbing has its own kind of whole ecosystem. It seems like people that are rock climbers are like really get deep into it. What was it about rock climbing that caught you, that you got the bug for that?
Well, it's quite the adventure. Very first time I went climbing was with my brother. He took me into the Three Sisters Wilderness in Oregon, and we did, I think it was a 14-day backpacking trip, and just him and I. And in the middle of that, we also did like a 48-hour solo. So we went a solo fast. So we went without food for 2 days, and he's like, yeah, just here's a journal, just write thoughts and stuff, whatever comes up, and try not to just fixate on writing about lasagna and ice cream and stuff. And we were sleeping right next to a creek, so it would beautiful water, snow melt, like no filtering needed. And that was I know we were going to talk about the climbing, but that was a very unique experience for me. Of, I had, even though I wasn't that old then, but it's still being in that space alone for that much time without doing something allowed like some layers to peel off and to go into my mind and bring back some memories that I'd already stuffed away, which is interesting as a young kid. And that was a very valuable experience that I later end up fully loving. That is my space, to be out alone for weeks in the Grand Canyon. But so he set up this top rope. He brought a rope out with him, which is crazy that he brought a rope on our 2-week backpacking trip. Like, what, dude? That's pretty awesome. Yeah, because we're only going to use it for 1 day or something. It was a 5-9, and that was really fun. And then
So whose idea was it to do the solo fast?
Craig's.
And like, where did this come from?
He went through an Outward Bound course the year before that my real father, who's now passed, he provided that opportunity for Craig. And so then Craig was kind of replicating that for me as a young little kid and his brother, and just kind of exposing some of the things that he learned and found valuable for me just as his brother. And that was great to spend that time with him.
Yeah.
During that.
It's really interesting because you're now adding doing nothing, eating nothing for 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. And you have nothing to do. So you just can sit there and think. Right.
Yeah. And Craig, he was like, you can't go hiking. You can't, like, you have to stay. And he was far enough away that we couldn't see each other, and he was doing the same thing. But I think he would come and check on me from afar just to see what the heck I was doing.
Yeah. It's almost borderline, people pay money to go to retreats that do these sort of things now.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming out of that damn fast, I was a skinny little kid. But coming out of that fast, Craig said, take it easy on how much food you eat at one time. And for some reason, we had this big bag of raisins. You know where this is going. And I'm just pounding the raisins. And then it seemed like maybe 20 minutes later, it was just like, raisins are gone. And my stomach, all that sugar and just like, oh, what, your stomach. And 48 hours isn't really that long to go without food. But my stomach was just, oh, what, this is terrible. Anyhow, yeah, that was very memorable. Just like basically it felt like I pounded the whole bag, 2 pound. I'm sure I didn't, but it just felt like I couldn't stop. And we've been kind of jumping around all the time, but we climbed in Yosemite a bunch, and we ran out of water on this one, Washington Column. I was with Craig, and we were really, really legitimately needing some water. And we finally get back down and we get to the bathroom and we just start, we get to the faucet and just start drinking water. And it was just the same thing. Like I couldn't stop drinking. Like I knew I should take it easy, but my body was like, you're going to drink more. You're going to drink more. You finally have the water. And at the top of the climb, we're looking around because we had already had a half a day without water. And I think it was triple digits or upper 90s or something. And that you're getting baked on the wall.
Yeah.
It was a 2-day climb. And I don't know why we didn't bring enough water. We're still learning or something. So we get to the top and I'm looking around for water, and there was like a liter stashed. And so we both split that. And then I found like some canned peas. So we opened that up and just drank the pea juice, the canned pea juice. And then, yeah, that was probably the thirstiest I've ever been, where it's like, wow, this is really, the body is really, really, really craving liquid of any sort. Yeah, I think that's the most dehydrated I've been. Like with real time, not like in a race, like, I need to really just sit down at this aid station and drink. It's just like, that nuked us both.
And you said that was a 2-day?
It was a 2-day.
So does that mean you're staying somewhere up halfway up? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
And you are doing the what do they call those?
A portal edge.
Okay.
Yeah, but this particular route has a natural edge 4 pitches up called Dinner Ledge, and you're still tied in if you want. And it's just a natural flat spot to hang out.
Is it you're tied in so you can't just like roll off?
Yeah.
Right. You're just so casual about it. That freaks me out. Like just even the thought of sleeping on the side of this ledge where I have to be tied in freaks me out. Right.
Well, so we ended up, we've had some other, I've climbed Half Dome and El Cap and stuff, but like on Half Dome, the first time I did it with my friend Jeff Hesseltine from college, we didn't have a portal edge, and we were doing it in 3 days. We were sleeping on the wall for 2 nights, and the second place you can sleep very comfortably is almost at the top, called Big Sandy Ledge, and that's a legitimate nice place to camp. But down lower, there's this little tiny ledge. It's all barely a place to sleep, and super. Like you're definitely just trying to get through the night. Had this ringtail cat come in my sleeping bag. It was on my face.
What?
Yeah. There's a lot of ringtail cats. Yeah.
You woke up to a ringtail cat.
And it was kind of like this weird dream. Here, kitty. It's like, oh my God, this is a ringtail cat. But,
are those things dangerous? Will they?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've never heard of any kind of ringtail cat attack.
It was just snooping around.
Yeah, just
what was
for
going
food.
on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the gear was probably not as advanced and light and packable as it is now.
Right.
So you guys are carrying bulkier stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe more weights.
And we just didn't have, like, now you can just, there are tons of books and YouTubes and, you know, all these instructional, you can learn a lot more what, you know, systems, whatnot. We were just making it up as we go. And
did you have any the fundamental, you know, knot tying techniques and fundamentals of rock climbing? Did you
without a doubt that was
guidance on that?
Instilled? Yeah, I was very solid with that.
Right.
And we actually, before doing Washington Column, Half Dome was my first big wall with Jeff and Jeff Hasseltine, and we later ended up doing it the next year, and we did it in a day, which is pretty great. Again, you know, now it's really easy. People do it all the time in a day, but back then it was like that's pretty cool. That was a good effort.
Did you find that you needed to work on your upper body strength when you transitioned from like biking and running to climbing?
Yeah, but I was a pretty skinny kid, and so it wasn't really, you know, back in college it wasn't, I didn't lift weights or anything, and I could still, you know, my best fitness, you know, I could do a one finger, one arm pull up, basically because I was so dang skinny.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah,
but that's real, you know, that's a good benchmark. Like, wow, you know, it seems crazy now as 195 pounds or something. Like, wow, that was a long time ago. I came out of college, I think at 139 or something.
Wow.
I was a skinny little kid, so I could climb pretty hard, and I didn't look all ripped. I just looked really skinny.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's pretty.
I didn't do extra training like folks do now to get even stronger.
Right.
I didn't lift or anything.
Like your hands and stuff. I mean, don't your hands kind of need to acclimate a little bit to that sort of thing?
Yeah, I've always had like what I would consider talons, like really, really, really strong hands. Just not necessarily everything else, but my hands have always been just super strong. I can always get the lid off the jar.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So I saw on your website that you did I thought this was wrong, a 7-month solo rafting trip.
So it was currently I'm at 7 trips that are up to a month long.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So I did misread that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've done many, many solo trips in the canyon.
Yeah, 7 that are when I'm talking about, you know, rafting or boating the Grand Canyon on the Colorado River, not my backpacking or running in the canyon. So it's just specifically on the water.
So when did the boating enter your life?
So again, kind of the beginning, the kayaking, the Epi's Great Race. As a 6th grader, my biological father was a big sailor, and I always kind of, and I mean this with respect, but he taught me 2 things. 1, the love for the water, and 2, how to not be a dad. You know, like I lacked connection. He didn't know how to be a father. I think he was a better grandfather later in his life, but at the time he just, and you know, my parents divorced early on, but he just lacked that, you know, wanting to raise some sons and teach them the outdoors and stuff. It was like, wow, interesting that I missed out on that. But the love for the water, we would go out. He was a big sailor, and he raced sailboats in the San Francisco Bay. And I remember we would meet like at Christmas time in the middle between Cool and the Bay Area where he lived, and we would like hang out for 3 hours and have a meal with my brother and sister and him, and that was our Christmas. And then I remember we would get like maybe 2 weeks in the summer where we would spend time with him, and so it was very minimal. There's no cell phones back then, and just the phone calls didn't happen to maintain any kind of connection. So it felt really weird, like when you go there in the summertime and it's like, I'm not really sure who you are. You certainly don't know who I am. But he would take me on these these extended sailing trips around the bay and up into the what is that called? Up towards Sacramento. I can't. It's not going to my brain, but the Delta. And we go way up there, just him and I, and camp out in his boat, whatnot. But I just remember as a little kid, and I'm not even really sure what age I'm remembering, maybe how old I am, but I remember, he had like this 38-foot boat, sailboat, and he would go down and make us sandwiches, and it would just be me at the helm, and you couldn't see him, and I just felt like, I'm on this ship, and it just was neat as a kid to be the one controlling the boat and feeling the wind's energy. And I ended up really aligning with sailing and just feeling the wind and being moved by the wind and how quiet it is, but hearing the water hit the hull and just hear the wind going through, the rigging and everything. And so water back then, there was some sort of amazing connection for sure. Didn't really do much with it. I mean, I taught myself how to roll a kayak in 7th grade in a lake just by myself after reading a book. So that was neat to be able to, hey, will you get down, buddy? Will you get down? Good boy. I didn't really get into rafting or real kayaking until college. But even then it wasn't much. I started kayaking some of the rivers around Arcata, up in the Trinity. Did some kayaking in the ocean and got my butt handed to me in the waves. That was really crazy, but I liked the feeling of the water. I don't know. When I moved out to Flagstaff here after college, I was introduced to Moe & Copey, Brady Black and Craig Kohler, before they had Moe & Copey, and I did a diamond down, the last, from 225 down to, at that time it was going all the way to South Cove, because the lake was huge and full.
Yeah.
But so I'd never rowed a boat before then. I did this trip with Craig Kohler on a diamond down and rowing my own boat with no instruction or anything. And it was like, this is something that really I can do. And there was no interest in like ever guiding or anything. But it always felt like second nature. I didn't need somebody to tell me how to do this thing. And did my first full Grand Canyon trip in 2003 with Brady in the summertime. And that was amazing. He had me as the lead boat. I didn't even have a guide. He threw me in the 16-foot cat, and I was the lead boat. And he just said, yeah, just go on down. So I was running all this stuff, a lot of stuff we weren't scouting that I thought maybe perhaps you should scout or talk about, especially if the person in lead has never been down here and doesn't have a guide. Like I didn't even know what was coming up or anything. And so I still really appreciate that opportunity because that let me just really feel comfortable on the water and not feel like I needed somebody to tell me how to, when you're scouting, how to run the rapid. Like I got used to reading the water and very comfortable somehow, instead of like trying to get away from features that will flip boats. Like think just like tree skiing or skiing in the bumps, like where I want to be in the water, how I want to get through, connecting with the current and the river's energy to get through, and looking at it like that I think goes a long ways in instead of trying to avoid stuff.
Right.
Like, I want to be here. So that was a punctuation in my learning of being confident, reading water and just connecting with that energy. 2008, I got my first permit, put a trip together and ended up flipping in lava. I was in a 14-foot boat, and I flipped in lava, and I remember somebody had videoed from above of me going through, and I was like, actually, you could see the fear in me and my reaction, like as you're coming over the horizon line, like I was rowing backwards, like to try to avoid this whole thing, which is like you're going through lava.
This is lava falls.
Lava falls,
right.
yeah.
Rapid.
And I ended up flipping in the V wave. And yes, I was in a little tiny 14, but it was just like the wrong mindset, the wrong everything. And ever since then, you know, I remind myself that I want to be here. My desire is to be right here. I want to experience this thing. I don't know what's going to happen in the rapid, but this is exactly where I want to be. And that is an amazing space mentally to be in. 2008, on that trip, that was in January, I met this old man. I say he's an old man. He's even older now, but Bruce Cline, and he was, we were down by Matt Cat, camped, and super cold morning, and this guy comes around the corner in his boat all by himself. He's got this black cowboy hat on, and he comes by to just kind of check in with us and introduce himself, and it was just like, "You're doing this by yourself?" And he's like, "Yeah, lava's right around the corner. I just got to get this behind me, you know, and all this." And I got his number and everything, and a way to connect with him. But it was neat. Like, I'd never thought about doing the river by myself if it weren't for Bruce, and just being able to talk with him. Like, that seemed like I would be very aligned with that experience, and it fits the way my mind works. Which my mind is crazy, but that's where I'm in flow state. And so the following year in 2009, I did a one boat, 2-person trip with my partner at the time, Katie Irwin. And that was very amazing. I was going through different systems of, you know, what would it be like? How would I feel if I was down here by myself? Because I wouldn't want to go down there and then glom on with other groups. Like, that's not a solo. You know, camping occasionally is different, but like I don't want to run the big stuff with other groups. I'd rather, like, that's just different.
Right.
It's a different experience, which is fine if that's what you do, but like that's not what I was after.
Right.
And then that went great. I felt very comfortable as a one boat without having the what, in my opinion, is a false sense of security, having other people around when they're not trained. Like, if you're not trained, what are you going to do if an incident occurs? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people just think numbers is great, numbers is safety. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's the right numbers makes it safe. And in 2010, I did my first solo, and that was a 28-day solo. And that went great. It was an amazing experience, and I was definitely peeling off a lot of layers of the onion in my brain that I had never gone to before because of the length of time of being by myself. And then I just kept applying every January, and I don't even know. I think I've been awarded 11 launches since 2008, and 7 of those I've chosen to do solo. And the shortest amount of time that I've done a solo is, I think, 22 days. And the longest that you're allowed to do it is 30 days. But sometimes I have to get back. My trip is bookmarked because of Black Canyon 100K or something that we're a sponsor of with Aravaipa. But yeah, I could do a whole podcast talk, 3-hour talk just on this subject, because it is absolutely it is so special, and I am able to enter a timeless dimension, and it just feels like home, and I'm not scared when I'm down there running the rapids alone. I think of myself as like a deer, a sheep, covering terrain that you're just like, what, how in the, and it's like, they're just in the zone, they just eat, they poop, they sleep, and they're in their environment. And that's generally how it feels when I'm down there. I don't make mistakes and errors, and I'm not fumbly when I'm down there by myself. I'm just simply in the zone, and it's a neat place to be.
Yeah. What sorts of, this is fascinating. I would love to do 3 hours just on this, right? Yep. But the one top of mind question I have is the safety aspect. What do you do differently between a group trip and a solo trip to prepare to be safe?
Yeah. So my first solos I rented an 18-foot raft, which is a lot of money when it's only you renting the raft for 30 days. You're not sharing that cost with the group.
Normally, is that like 6 people, or
it might be like you might be, one raft might be 3 people, maybe 4.
Okay.
A 16-passenger trip may have 4 boats, and maybe 5 if you're renting them.
Okay.
So that was kind of expensive. Like, wow. But I still, while I own my current NRS 15, I thought it was still too risky, to run the canyon alone in that little tiny boat. So for the next 2 solos I rented that 18. And then I finally felt like I want to do it in the craft that I own. And I feel I can definitely move in the river where I want to be. And there are just a few rapids where a bigger boat might be nicer if you're alone. But for the most part, most of the rapids, you can move where you want to move. And in a little boat, it's like a Mini Cooper. But if you don't make the move, you're going to have a consequence where you can fumble your way through in the bigger boat. But I really like being able to move through the rapids. And so regarding how to mitigate the whole safety system, like, for one, I wear a throw bag on my waist. And most people are like, what do you have that for? There's nobody in your group. But I can like live bait myself. I can clip, if I have an incident and I'm swimming with the boat, as I get towards shore, I can clip that throw bag to the boat and then swim to shore and still be able to release the system. Swimming with a rope, you definitely want to be able to escape that system. It's very dangerous.
Yes. Yeah.
So I run a stern bow line on the bottom as well to make it easy for myself to be able to pull myself up onto the bottom of the boat. At the beginning of every rapid, I remind myself to stay with the boat. Stay with the boat, even if you're not able to hold on to the boat. Like, stay in the water unless you need to get out because you're going to die. Because that's the mothership. That's where all of your gear is. So I remind myself that pretty much for sure on all the big rapids. And I had Jason Hughes from Wet Dreams here. He's now in Grand Junction, his company. I had him sew me a little mesh pack that I could Fastex buckle onto my PFD, the back of my PFD. And that has around 1,200 calories of energy bars, some fire starting tools, a warm hat that's all in a Ziploc bag, the spot device that's always pinging, so at least my family knows where I'm at. And then obviously mechanical advantage, carabiners and pulleys, prusiks, so that I can use mechanical advantage to flip the raft over. If the raft is upside down, I have the ability, I rig dry bags, one dry bag with the buckles and everything aligned so that I can unbuckle it while it's underwater. So I could get a sleeping bag out. In my pack as well, on my PFD, I also have a little tiny emergency bivy sack. And then on the other side of the boat, if it's upside down, I have another rig bag with a static line and a rope come along, so that I would still create the mechanical advantage of like 3-to-1 system, and then be able to use that rope come along, because it usually takes about at least 3 people, maybe 4, to use mechanical advantage to flip that boat over. So I can access that bag while the boat is upside down. And then on the outside, if I just simply fall out of the boat, which has happened twice on solos, if I'm injured, shoulders injured or something, something happened to my body, I have nylon aiders that I use for big wall that are totally compressed by each oar tower, that I can have access and have now a nylon ladder in the water, so I can help myself get back into the boat. And I guess that about covers my safety system.
Yeah.
in the elevator speech. I've thoroughly gone over it for my own system, and I love it when people are very interested, for them to bring questions to me. What about this? I love that. It's not like, well, I know that I'm good, I know this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love questions, because if I can't answer them in a way that I want to be able to know that if that happens, I already have that system. If there's a weakness in my system, I want to know. So I love it when people that know about the water and the boating environment, when they ask me questions about safety.
Yeah. Has this system developed over time because of error?
Not because of error. I've been so lucky. I have to say, I've been so lucky.
Yeah.
I haven't had a flip on a solo. I think it wouldn't surprise me if it happens. I don't think that would be a bad thing. It would just add to the adventure, and
yeah, but it pressure tests all your systems,
mm-hmm.
right? And like with bike packing, there's a lot of, this is very intense. It could easily put you in a very bad situation. Bike packing is only a small component of that, right? But it has the same sort of, like, you develop systems, you come up with concepts, and then you pressure test them, and then you hope that some of this stuff never happens.
Right.
But if it does, you hope that your system that you thought through executes the way that you thought it was going to execute, right?
Without a doubt. Yeah.
In emergency situations, especially. And so a lot of this you learned through developing it yourself and then talking to other people.
Yeah, it's actually not from talking to other people. It's just developing it myself. There's not a lot of information on that. My friend Bruce Cline, who first introduced me to the solo, he has completed 10 solos now, and he wrote a book about soloing and different systems and stuff. But it's just not. There aren't a lot of people who do it.
Yeah.
And so,
do you know how many permits are given out every year for solos?
So it's still a group solo, or it's still a group permit. Sorry, that you get a launch for.
Oh, I see.
And then you end up soloing,
Right.
and so there's no. You don't tell them, "Hey, I'm a soloist."
Right. There's not a separate permitting system.
Right.
So there's no real count.
Right. So the park knows there is a, they know how many people have soloed and whatnot. But yeah, that I would say the most for those who do solo, it's usually done like in a kayak. It could be done very, very quickly, and when you're in the kayak mode, when you flip over, you just roll back up. It's not a big deal
unless you hit your head, right?
That's yes. And in the can, you generally never hit your head because it's deep, but you could have a shoulder issue.
Okay.
Something like that. But you can't bring the supply volume is really limited to your kayak space. So you really tend to roll through pretty quickly. Where if you're on a raft, you can hang out for 30 days or whatever.
Right.
And for me, the time, I really do love the time on the water by myself. That is magic. I really don't, even though I'm a morning person like yourself, in the winter time, it's really cold, and the sun hitting your face is like magic. And so often in camp, I might make a cup of coffee, put it in a thermos, and then go hike up so I can feel. I'll hike up to where the sun hasn't hit yet, but I know it's going to. So I don't hike to the sun, but I know it's going to hit me, and then I'll just sit there, and I'll just let that sun just roll onto my face, and that is with your first sip of coffee when that's happening is just magic. Instead of, because I love coffee, instead of having a cup of coffee down in camp and going for a hike, like that's just makes it extra special. Like, thank you, the sun, so warming.
Yeah.
And I get on the water, and it's not a big deal for me to go right up to dark on the water. Where if you're in a group, you want to get off early so everybody can set up their tent and just situate and, do dinner, all that stuff. Yeah. And so being on the water super late is getting that evening light, which you would enjoy as a videographer. It's absolutely magic, and it's so quiet. And then as a single boater, you can really, and the Park Service encourages tiny groups, soloists, to utilize any place you can camp, because you don't need a big camp. So there are a lot of places as a single person that you can camp that's not even on the map.
Right. Do the beaches sort of change down there with the years?
They do with the high flow experiments, when they'll raise the flow to 38,000 CFS with like the Priya or the LCR carrying sediment, that the main flow coming out of Lake Powell will be that the source to carry the sediment that's coming from the Priya or the LCR, and then all the places.
The LCR is the Little Colorado River.
Yes, sorry, the Little Colorado River. Yeah. All of the places that have natural beaches, when the river is running high, that is an eddy, and that's where the sediment is able to drop out of suspension. It stays in suspension during when it's in current, and so the beaches get rebuilt during those high flow experiments. And we don't have those naturally, the high flows, because we have the dam. That used to be a common occurrence. It cranked to 100,000 CFS pre-dam in spring runoff.
Right.
So it's just different now because you have the dam.
Right, and it would also change the dynamic of the rapids. right? It'd
Absolutely.
be different from year to year.
Yeah.
So you,
Depending on when you, when your trip was, you could be just absolutely, like unrecognizable because there's so much flow. Like it's so controlled now. And January actually tends to be a nice, at least from in my opinion as a soloist, a nice month because it's they usually bring the peak flow in the mid-teens and maybe the lower flow during the day, maybe at the top of the single digits, maybe 9,000 CFS. And so me personally, I'm very particular of which rapids I want to run at a higher flow or a lower flow for my safety. And I naturally have, like, without even thinking about it after doing it 7 times now, like where I naturally camp so that when I get on the water in the morning, that particular rapid, I'll have the flow that I want, without being like super anal with the itinerary, because I never have an itinerary ever. And you, as a rolling by myself, I can, sometimes I do, might do 40 miles in a day on the water. I tend to, one kind of last thing about this, this boating stuff, but I tend to, instead of like bumping down to the next camp each day, maybe 10 or 15 miles, I really, in camp, I try to do nothing and not fiddle. And I've brought books down before and they're fun, depending on the book. And, I might bring one book or something down that really means something. But I try not to tinker to make the time go by. Yeah. I embrace, if I feel bored, which I rarely do, but I really, if I'm struggling for some reason with the quietness or like being antsy, that's when I find it so important to really just force myself to not tinker, just sit and see what happens. And then you get into that flow state and it is timeless. So I'll just have lots of time in camp. It's common for me to just lay over for 3 days in some place and just not tinker, not do stuff, just sit in a chair and look at the current. And then I'll get my mind into the water component where now I'm in a different environment where I definitely feel more raw. This environment can take my life. And it's important for me down there alone to make sure that my mind is now ready to have a water day. Like my mind is in water mode. And so then I'll roll and I might do 2 or 3, water days and really cover the distance. And I never get out. I don't hike. I don't take lunches and stuff. I just stay on the water. And then I'll get back to, now it's time to just chill. And I generally, rolling through in the winter, I try to find places where camps offer lots of direct sunlight so I can hang out and be warm and soak in the vitamin D.
It's almost like you're doing a 20-day meditative retreat for yourself, as you describe it, with no distractions, just you and whatever's in your mind, no tinkering. I love tinkering, but I'm plagued by tinkering at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. How do you, so you do this and then you come back and you work and you're bombarded by emails and events and orders you need to fill. And how do you transition back and forth?
In the beginning, the first solos it was fairly abrupt coming back, a bit abrasive, like, we're going back. Everything's rolling too quickly. Like, go back to your calm place, but you can't run a business in the calm place. You can't. It's filled up. It's maxed out, and now I have figured out a way to begin the exit like the last 3 days of the solo to my mind is able to start like gearing back up and moving and thinking about the outside responsibilities of right here staying alive and staying warm and fed. And so the transition is much easier, and I'm ready. You know, in the first solo is like, I just want to stay here forever. I wanted to stay, like, I don't want to go back, you know, to those responsibilities. This is so special. And now I'm ready to come back. Like I know the length of time that I choose for my trip to be. I have somebody that's going to pick me up on this date because I chose that. And so my mind now starts that transition earlier. So I'm ready just to, I'm back on the treadmill when I get back here. Yeah, it's not so abrupt now.
Yeah, you figured out. Well, I think part of that is your team too.
Oh my goodness,
having a good solid team,
without a doubt.
I found that at work is, if I've done my job correctly, by empowering my team to be able to make their own decisions and not micromanage every little thing, and then I can leave and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah,
and it's actually a good thing.
Yeah,
I had to get over that I let go of my responsibilities and my control, right? And say, it's a good thing that they're going to have questions that need to be answered, because then they can be empowered to answer those and make those decisions, right?
Yeah.
And
it's good. It's good for both.
Absolutely.
The team gets to maybe step into some decision making that maybe I created myself, and so that's so important. To some decisions have to be created or be decided by me, but a lot of times it's like I have to realize, and I'm continuing to learn this, but if I'm the only one that holds the key, you're not going to have the system at its full potential. And that's so important. The fact that you brought that up is just spot on, you know, because I am very controlling with my, like, especially this, you know, like, Stacy created the salve, and I am the business thing, like the brand, the way the brand feels to the consumer. And my team is great, and they're just fine without me. And it's probably a nice vacation for them, you know, to just, go ahead, Chris. And at the same time, I am an asset to this company. I do help out a lot besides doing the event. So but yeah, the team is unbelievable. Yeah. The team I have put together.
I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts about this sort of thing, leadership strategies, and building a team and empowering a team, and trying not to be, I've been plagued with micromanagement in my past by my leaders, and I know how it feels, you know, and I do the best I can to maintain a little bit of vision and control, but also, like, it's such a balance to weave in the allowing the responsibility to go out on your crew.
Yeah.
You know, and number one, being okay with that, not trying to let them make a decision and then you, like, shut it down. That doesn't feel good for anybody. Right. And it's an art, I think, in business.
It's definitely an art, and it's something that I have to keep on the front burner, that awareness of perhaps the decision that the team made isn't what I made, but is it still okay? You know, is it detrimental? Then yeah, we probably ought to figure out a way to, that wasn't good. But otherwise, it's like, it's just, is it my opinion, or is it really going to be bad? And that's so important to always keep it on the front burner of, it's okay for people to do things differently.
Right. Putting your own ego in check really is what it comes down to. Right. And there definitely is a parallel with all the things we've been talking about up to this point, especially endurance sports and running the river in the Grand Canyon, the Colorado River. It it crushes your ego because you know you're in the presence of something that's way, way more powerful than you.
It is so raw.
Yeah.
So raw. And you can feel empowered and like you really know what you're doing up here. You know, the business is going great or whatever. And then when you're down there, in my opinion, if you go into that same thought down there, you're going to get your ass smacked hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a respect thing of the environment, not a conquering. And I still, when I'm allowed a clean passage through there, I am thankful and grateful. And it's not, I'm a badass motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
I might have a skill set that gives me better odds, but I also have a lot of luck, and my intention is just to stay in that current, and whatever it is can provide me with whatever experience I need. And it might be an incident. It might be now I need to rig this stuff and it's cold. And I chose to do this hard rapid at the end of the day when you don't have a lot of daylight left. The other thing that's in that pack is a small headlamp as well. Okay. In case, but I am aware when I choose to do a rapid that has a bigger potential for a flip, how much time daylight is left in the day to solve that incident.
Yeah.
Because things really get cold in January at night. If it's not already cold in the daytime, like things really drop out with the temps, and like so your hands are gonna. I never wear gloves really, except like through all the rapids. I always, if I do have gloves on because it's super cold, I always take the gloves off, put them in my pee zipper in my dry suit to keep them dry, so that my hands get wet during the rapid, and then, but I never wear like neoprene or some other gloves. It seems to I love just I don't know what that's all about. I feel pretty fortunate because some people, their hands really stop working early with the cold. Yeah. And that cold water and whatnot. But
you have pretty good blood flow.
I guess I do.
Yeah. Do your feet get cold?
My feet do get cold. We didn't cover this, but I climbed Denali in 2005. Okay. And I was exposed to some pretty cold temps, -30 Fahrenheit. Oh. And I had I didn't have any frostbite or anything, but between my goggles and my balaclava, that little section that's exposed is extra sensitive to cold. My nose actually did get white and waxy. So that's now hypersensitive to cold, and my hands and my feet are more sensitive to cold than they used to be, especially my feet. I didn't have any frostbite and everything's fine, but they're a little more, especially as I get older. I like to have the heat up. Yeah. I have a heater in the van that I travel with. The dogs love it, and I love it warm, not hot like sweating, but just like I've been cold in my life, and this is yeah, I earned it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Do you have? Are you planning more solo trips? Is there a couple still in the hopper?
There are. I would like to do it as long as I have the desire in my heart to, and the opportunities continue to present themselves. I recently just bought a Dory from a gentleman that I met on my last solo, and he built the Dory. It was his second one.
What is a Dory?
A Dory is a wooden boat that you can, I guess you can get them, you can make them with aluminum as well. It's just a different style. It's a bigger volume boat that almost behaves and reacts to the water like a kayak, like a hard shell kayak. And it's so beautiful. Like, in my opinion, like a sailboat just has beautiful lines, and that's how a Dory is. And I've always, I love kayaking. I love rafting. I've never owned a Dory until now, but I've always just been drawn to that looks like that's the sweetest craft. It's just beautiful. And this gentleman, Franz, it was his second boat that he built. He lives up in Bend, Oregon. And my last solo in 2022, I hadn't seen anybody since, like, I think I passed a group at mile 72 at Cardenas, 71. And I didn't see a soul, even when I was going through Phantom Ranch. I didn't see any hikers or anything. It was just like the stars were aligned. I didn't see anybody until 209, from 72 to 209.
Wow.
Not another soul. And the first thing I saw when I came around this corner was this dory tied up to the side of the shore. And this gentleman kind of hunched over, and turns out as I rolled into him, and he had no idea that I was rolling into him because I'm super quiet. And he's just he's cutting this apple and, eating almond butter and apple. And I was just like, dude, this boat is gorgeous. And we had good conversation for a while, and it was probably 20 minutes, I don't know, before he told me that he built it. And I ended up camping with him and his group. There's 3 others in his group, another dory, another raft. And I just said, if you ever end up building a third dory and you want to sell this, please call me, because like this boat imprinted on me with the experience that I just had. I just ran all that stuff. There's nobody around. Like there's no, sometimes, sure, you may have an incident in lava, but there are other groups maybe another day or 2 behind. Like, if you can't flip your boat, like another group's coming. And not having knowledge of anything behind me, because everything's just been perfect as all the groups were rolling through there. Seeing that particular boat after the experience that I just had, it was like I really want that boat, and he gave me an amazing deal, and I think he felt the connection that I had with it and thought that I should be the one taking over that boat. And so to answer your question, I did get a launch for January 13th of next year, and I'm gonna take that dory down.
So cool.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother level of figuring out my safety systems to roll through in a dory.
Sure.
Just whether it's a flip or a boat repair, because it's different than Hypalon. You just put some patches on. So
sure,
it really ups the ante, if you will. And I don't want to treat it as I want it for the dopamine release. I want it for the journey that I feel like I need to complete that, whatever that feeling was when I saw that boat. Like I need to take that craft down myself, by myself. So yeah, next year,
that's
January.
so special.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll be amazing.
Yeah. It'll
be so great to fulfill that thing, that's that itch that you have.
I'm excited, and it's I really feel like, and I am not fixated on that's what I'm going to do 100%. Like I still have my raft, and I know those safety systems that I developed. So I'm not like totally closed-minded on that. Like if it doesn't feel right, is the week before, 2 days before, if it doesn't feel right, I'll just take the raft for whatever reason. Because man, I need to really want to be there in that dory.
Yeah, you've just upped the ante a little for yourself.
Mm-hmm. But I don't. I mean, for one, you don't bump over rocks like you can get away with in a raft. Mm-hmm. You don't hit rocks. And so some of the lines that I may be able to skirt around, like Enhance or perhaps Dubendorf, where there are rocks very close to the surface that if if it's too shallow, I'll just roll through them. It's not a big deal. You don't do that in the Dory. So some of my lines might be a bit different, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for the challenge.
And there's only really one place to practice, right?
In my opinion.
Like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is there, like, do people practice this other than running rivers? Do they do smaller rivers, or, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, really what I need to do is take it out on Lake Mary, fully loaded the way I think that I will have it rigged, get it to flip over, and then make sure I can flip it back in the water, because you don't want to use mechanical advantage because it's a wooden boat. You're not going to take it to shore and then, use mechanical advantage to flip it back over. Like, that needs to be done in deep water. So I just need to make sure that I put my supplies in, so in a way that I'll be able to flip it back over by myself in the water, just getting on the bottom and pulling it over. So I will need to practice that.
Some shakedowns.
Yeah.
We bike packing is shakedowns, right? Just making sure everything works, kind of go out for an easy ride and make sure the bags work. And you have the weight load is
totally. And I do need to connect, like, with Brad Demick, local Dory builder and Flagstaff guy. I need to connect with him and one to learn the repairs, and two, just like, what do you think of this? How would you rig this on the inside? Because it's a clean deck on the top, and everything's just underneath, and it's just how you put all your supplies downstairs. Yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
This is cool.
Yeah,
this is a cool continuation of this journey for you.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I don't have. I just want to be able to do these trips alone, as long as it feels like that's what I want to do, and I'm still getting a benefit from it. Because I love doing trips with people. I love sharing that journey with people, and especially if they've never run a boat down there. Like, if I know that person, just to be able to, it's not even to teach them how to row, it's the mindset of the connection, and not to be afraid. Because when you're afraid down there, it's not fun, in my opinion. Like, you might as well just go base jumping, which is fine too, but just, like, not to treat it as this is super scary. Like, somehow, and a lot of commercial guys, especially paddle guides, they'll escalate the danger for their clients, because their clients are giving you money to, and I'm not necessarily talking about Grand Canyon guiding, but you want it to seem like it's a big deal, and I'm going to take you through, and good job, and we almost died, and all this stuff, when really, no, it was so easy. This is what I do hungover the whole summer, like, this is nothing. But they tend, and it's fine, because it's making the experience for that customer, that paying customer, it's making that experience like the fear more palpable. Like, now I really put it on the line, because maybe they never do that in that kind of environment in their lives. So it's like, it makes them feel good that they did something that was scary or whatever. I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
It's not. There's a time when you should always have respect, but there's a time when perhaps you should be scared, but try to feel why you're scared. Is there a reason? Is something, or is it just because you're just simply think you should be scared because your ego says, if I flip, then people will think I suck. And I flipped my boat down there, and it's like, that doesn't even matter. Everybody flips. If you boat a bunch, you're going to flip. Get that off the plate.
Yeah. Fear can be a good thing.
It can.
Right? Fear is there for a reason.
Yes.
And it means that you're worried about the thing you're about to do. You're engaged with it, right? You have I can't find the right word, but you care about it. It means you care about it.
Yes.
Right. and that's okay. It's like public speaking, like fear. 100%. It can be embraced.
This is not what I love doing.
Right.
Talking in front of the camera. This is not in my wheelhouse.
Doesn't seem that way.
Yeah.
You know, so the fear can be like weaponized almost, right?
Right.
In a certain way, right? Yeah. It can be, it can hold you back. And I can see how when you have water, when you have all of this volume of water, the only thing I can think of, the thing that is lateral to this is like surfing.
Oh, sure.
Where you are literally flowing with it, embracing it, riding the wave, literally. Yeah. And if you resist it, you're just going to get crushed.
Right.
And with this, and I've been on a 14-day trip. It was a guided trip, but I didn't. I was hired on to do video work at the time.
What was that trip? Down the Grand?
Yeah, down the Grand Canyon.
Awesome.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I spent most of the time in the motor support boat.
Yes.
It was a J rig, I think. Mm-hmm. Doing some filming with the motor support operator. I don't know what they're boat person. I don't know what they're called. What would you call that?
I don't know the person that's operating.
Motor support person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were like the boatmen and women who were running the smaller boats with 4 or 5 people in each run. And it was a really interesting experience. It was, like you said, that commercial trip experience, and there was tons of people from like back east, and I mean, it was just mind-blowing just to be down there for them, right? It also kind of was not quite as I'm just trying to imagine what that trip would have been like if I was with one person or by myself, and how much different it would have been, because it was very catered, which the food was amazing, I have to say. Yeah. It was incredible.
Isn't it unbelievable?
It was unbelievable.
What they
food.
Put together.
It was the best, like some of the best food
commercial
I've had.
trips, just like, wow.
It was incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah. And they had like the swampers, have you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. They're like the greenhorns, the new people, right? That are kind of working
a free
their
trip.
way up.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and there was this whole like economy happening there with the people, and we stopped at Phantom Ranch, and half the people left and hiked out, and we got a whole nother group of people in. And, I was pretty much like toast at day, I don't know, 9. We got hit with a monsoon storm.
What do you mean toast?
Like
what did you feel?
I was, it was probably the longest I'd been away from home doing anything. I'd done backpacking up to that point, and maybe like a 5 or 6 day trip. So I was starting to get into that like zone of, I think I'm ready to be home, but I'm still committed being down here for another bit of time. And I was hired, so I had a professional commitment there, but I was starting to fatigue, I guess would be a better term, right? Very, very heavily at that point. Right. Sleeping on the beach with the ants, and the ants going in your sleeping bag, and all that stuff started to kind of add up after that time. And it became sort of an endurance mission after that for me.
Right.
But it was definitely, it was interesting to see how the other people responded too, that weren't used to being in the outdoors. And then all of a sudden they're doing this trip and they're in it.
Right.
And some of them went through some mini crises on their own,
Sure.
And they got through it. And it was kind of interesting to see the evolution of a few people. And then I started thinking about the people that work these trips. And I know I work with someone who used to be an organizer of, she would help to organize the trip, like the administrative side of the trip. And I started thinking about all people probably have freak out sessions down there. Like they think they're getting into one thing, and they get to the bottom, and they get 2 days in, and they're like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Right. And it's not, once you start to not want to be in there, it's not like if that happens, and it's happened to me once on a solo, where it's like, I'm ready to come out earlier than I thought. I'm obviously able to honor that. Like, okay, I'm just going to roll out earlier, but it changes everything, because it's like, it's nice when you're fully present down there and you want to be down there. And if you're in a group trip, that the group you're aligned with them, and they're letting you have the quiet if that's what you need, or the deep conversations in a direction that you want to have, that helps you grow, or that you're interested in. then it's like, it's amazing. But if there's some conflict on a group trip, you're just like, this sucks. I'd rather just be on Lake Powell on the ski boat, like this is
there was
wrong.
conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you have to be that person?
Yeah. And I was more or less an observer. I was just hired on to document things, not the people. I was hired on to document the experience of the motor support.
Yeah.
And the one thing that really stuck with me was they have to pull the prop out of the water as they're running it. That was something that was, I don't know why that was so cool or odd. And he was telling a story about they carry an extra prop because he broke the prop off one year and lost control in the middle of I think it was Crystal Rapid. Broke it off right in the middle of Crystal Rapid, and he was having to, what do you do if you can't maneuver the boat anymore in the middle of this rapid?
Hopefully float downstream. That gets stuck.
Yeah. And one of the other wildest things that stuck with me was the amount of time that they could keep ice.
Yeah.
It was, we were deep in, and they still had ice buried in the bottom of that motor support boat.
Canyon Cooler.
Yeah.
It's the best of the best.
Okay.
Local company.
Shout out to Canyon Cooler.
Canyon Cooler.
Yeah. It was incredible. It was like ice was like gold at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
I know.
For, mixed drinks and stuff like that, right, for the guests. And it was a 5-star experience as far as the guiding part of it, the food and the just the way we were taken care of, and it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. Yeah. But I could see how it would be even more incredible. I wanted to go back to the solo thing just for one last thing. Sure. So I find it fascinating that there's a certain bit of the world now is overwhelmed with information. I think it's oversaturated with information. It's being through the cell phone and through social media and through emails, and I've heard this term recently called frictionless communication. Right? It's made certain things much easier, like making deals done, getting orders in, doing business. Frictionless communication is a positive, but it's also this negative in that it can become untenable quickly, and we can get overwhelmed with being bombarded with advertising and people that need something from us or whatever all the time, right? I'm finding these groups of people that I talk to that they seek out places that they can force that to be cut off from. You have seemed to have appreciated that for a very long time, even before communication was frictionless. It was a lot more, you didn't have cell phones. It was a lot harder to have that, but you've kept that through line. I intentionally seek that out, where I'll just shut my phone off. I'll try to have the discipline. I'll go to some place that I know I'm just going to not have cell service, but I still feel the pull to that. Yeah. And then maybe on the second or third day of that, I'll kind of accept that it's okay to let that go. Yes. Is that, do you, like, number one, do you do this intentionally? Like, are you aware that you were doing this? Or, and number two, is that part of your transition when you go from a busy work environment to complete solitude and solidarity by yourself?
Yeah, without a doubt. So when every solo I've done, when I push off from Lee's, there's never fear or heightened, like, oh my God, I shouldn't do this. Like, I've never experienced that. It's always like, I can't wait for this opportunity that I don't know how it's going to present. And I go around the corner through the first riffle, and I just have this amazing release of energy, and I cry usually for 20 minutes, an hour. There's just all of this stuff that's not anything in particular. I can't even pinpoint why tears are flowing. And I'll get to my first camp, and I still have lots of details of the business and just responsibilities, and I wonder how big my inbox is now. That's, and then each day, like you're saying, like maybe 3 days, those when thinking about those details, they go away. And it does take me about 3 days, maybe 5 days to be in my fully, like, I am really here. I'm not thinking about details with my daily life here with the business or whatnot. And I can definitely, I'm aware of once that finally leaves, the wanting to think about this or wonder about that, and it goes away, and it's like, that's when I feel just super present and incredibly grounded. And then, as we've talked about this off air, like that flow state can begin, which I was in flow state a while ago when I was really talking about the canyon. I don't even remember what I said. I don't know how much time went by. I was in total flow state.
Mm-hmm. I think we've been talking for 30 minutes, but it's probably been like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know. And I love it when I get into that flow state. And it's timeless. And that's magic.
Yeah, that's what this is for on the logo.
Oh,
the
love it.
Clock.
Yeah.
The clock is supposed to be representative of this manipulation of time in these different activities that we do, and it goes both ways, right? So in the frictionless communication world, we do just like lose weeks, months, years of our lives. And we realize that all we've been doing is posting on Instagram or doom scrolling or whatever. Right. And, that's sort of a dissatisfying. Well, I believe it's a unfulfilling way to manipulate time. I'm fascinated by how if you do a high interval intensity training, time slows down to a painfully slow bit.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like it just that you're watching the seconds tick by, and it's like you've now manipulated time, and then you do an endurance sport and you kind of settle in. You realize you're going to be doing this for the next 3 days. You can lose 3 hours, 4 hours. You don't know what happened to it. It's okay though. For me, that's a more beneficial, better feeling because I'm more in this present state, which I think is kind of a good, healthy place to be in for most people, is in this state of presence.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a little bit like weirdly overly fascinated with this particular segment and the flow state. But it's really good stuff. So
in the flow state also, I get there with climbing movement. And I don't think I touched on that before. I'm not sure, but it was like that's where even if you have really big day and you go out climbing, even if it's the climbing gym downtown in the evening, and you have a really big day the next day, got to get up early and do these video calls and whatever. Like when I'm moving, there's nothing else going on, and it's not out of fear or anything. It was just like, I'm climbing with a rope. Everything's fine. There's not, I'm not out in the mountains where there are environmental dangers. It's just like, it's a nice place to be. And I don't think of it as an escape, but home, that's where, that feels like home. And I can't always be home.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, the world, I wish I could figure out how to monetize.
Exactly. You still have to make a living,
but then it opens up a whole new set of complications where you're now trapped by, maybe financially, by the thing that you love, and that could go into a bad place too. So when you are in this, like after you've surpassed your 3 days and you've transitioned fully to this sort of flow state, have you ever found that it allows you capacity for other, like freedom of thought for other ideas, maybe work related?
Absolutely. Yep. It's without a doubt, it can be a productive flow state with ideas that will help my business life. It's not just the deer eating and pooping and sleeping. It's not that brainlessness. There is in my opinion, a nice balance of going back and forth. It's lots of good ideas. You're able to see the iceberg way ahead because you're not just microed out on the tasking. So you can see the macro view way out ahead, and so it's valuable for my business as well to go down there. And at times, it definitely feels very selfish. One, I'm taking a permit that 15 other people could go on. Without a doubt, that feels very like I'm a selfish person to do that. But apparently, I still just do it. And I think that what I get out of those trips, for example, the solos, is really, it just benefits me in so many ways outside of not just my business, but just as a human being. It just feels like it's what I'm supposed to do for whatever reason. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like I think I can share through my energy or whatnot. Maybe my hugs, like it's worth it. It'll impact people that I don't even know I impacted.
Well, I think you do that. I mean, when I walked in here, we met a year ago, and then we met again, and you gave me a hug. And I'm like, this guy's the best. Like, what a, if more people could do that, right? Like, just be a hugger with like almost a stranger, right? Like, kind of. Like, we know each other a lot better now, but it's I think it's just fine that you take the one permit. I think you're giving back in other ways.
Well, thank you.
I don't think you got.
Nobody's ever said that I'm selfish, but I've always just kind of been like, well, I am, because it's a 16-person permit that I'm choosing to not include others on.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Can we take a quick break?
Of course.
All right. I gotta pee.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break.
This is great.
Yeah. Can you give me the backstory on the purple hat?
Absolutely. So I was on a Cataract Canyon 10-day raft trip that I put together, and it was around Halloween. So we all brought costumes, and one of the guys brought that purple hat as part of his costume, and which I thought was funny. And at the end of the trip, he was like, Chris, I think you ought to have this. I have no use for it, and I have a feeling you will. He said something like that. And I didn't have a use for it for a long time. When I had the tree service, when I would do snow removal in the winter, I would wear that hat because it had a nice brim. So when it was snowing, it would keep the snow off from going down my neck or whatnot. And my customers would they just loved it. Like they thought it was funny and unique, and it would make them smile and ask questions. And so I was like, man, that's I was surprised at the response that I had when I would wear it. And then when I started SNB, as aid station captain, which I am often, I wanted for sure a way to be distinguishable in the crowd of, we'll go talk to Chris, he's wearing the purple hat, and be able to easily be seen. And then I realized that was if I'm going to be out in public a bunch, perhaps that could be part of my branding, and because it's a funny hat, and it's the first one I had for a couple of years or something, and I think it was Tanner that ate it, and I was like, wow, the hat's gone. And Havoline 100, it happened like literally maybe 5 days before Havoline 100. My good friend and fellow ambassador as well, Andrew Baker. You get down, buddy? Will you get down? Okay. He came as a superhero.
Okay.
Chris Thornley. He dressed as me, which I thought was hilarious. And he had the purple hat.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so I told Andrew the story, and he was just instantly like, there you go. The replacement, like literally just happened organically, like this entire business. And then I had that hat for quite a while, and then it suddenly like disappeared. And as you know, we have crazy winds here in Flag, and I don't know if, it was one of the days that the van door was open, and a lot of times I'll have it on the passenger seat on the headrest, kind of stuck, so it sits down because it's easy to squish or whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's a $10 Amazon hat. And it was suddenly gone. I was joking around, like somebody stole it because it's worth money now. I raised the value of the purple pimp hat. And so I looked on Amazon again to get a replacement, and it was out of stock here in the United States, but available like in the UK. So another ambassador of ours, Betsy Hartley up in Oregon, she bought it from the UK and gave it to me. So that was the third hat. And they're under $10. But that's the hat story. And I think it's pretty hot in the summer.
Yeah.
It doesn't breathe.
Is it like velvet or it's pretty?
Yeah, I don't know what the material
fake
is,
velvet?
but it does not breathe. Yeah, it's fake velvet.
Yeah, for a $10 hat. You got to have a stockpile of them though, because if they ever go,
well, I don't know,
become unavailable.
That might be, I don't know.
You're gonna
it
need
just
a
keeps
closet.
coming to me. I don't know. I never have purchased that hat, so okay. I don't know. I like where we're going with this.
Someone needs to buy you a stockpile of hats.
Yeah, and keep it in their own closet. Yeah.
Oh man. And who's in there's a Timber, the squirrel costume,
Timber,
right?
Is what we call our squirrel mascot. I don't have the head over here, but it's somebody different every time.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I'm in that, I feel incredibly awkward, even though nobody knows who's inside there. And some people that are really, really not public people at all just shine when they're in that.
Oh, wow.
And they just engage the crowd, and they're perfect with the kids, because a lot of kids are very, they're afraid of it. Mm-hmm. And so you definitely, you can't be that guy that likes to mess with the kid. It's like, no, the kid is afraid of the costume, this thing. Mm-hmm. And so finding the right balance of engagement and fun, and it's great to encourage folks to take a picture with the squirrel. And mm-hmm. It is amazing way to help with brand recognition.
I mean, if you think the hat is hot, I mean, that suit's
that suit is crazy. Yeah. And Eric Sensman, who worked for me for years, he ran a 5K in it, a 5K race at TRE in Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. And he ran sub 18 minutes in it. Wow. Totally hypoxic. I have no idea. And the best part is when he finished, he stayed in character instead of just going somewhere to rip that head off so he could breathe. He fully stayed in character, engaged with everybody, high-fiving, and just like unbelievable. So right now, I don't know what that official 5K time was, but that is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I should have gotten the bonus points,
it
right? The bonus
really
time
is amazing.
For the commitment
you
afterwards.
You can't see anything. You can't breathe.
Yeah.
I mean,
shout out Eric.
Yeah, Eric, that's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Do you want to be the squirrel anytime?
I don't know.
At an
I've never
event?
been a mascot before. That's an interesting question. I haven't really considered it. I'll have to soul search a little on
Yeah,
that
if
one,
you
I
ever
think.
do, you can just try it out.
Yeah. Riding around on a bike. I don't know.
Well, yeah, we have we did some when we were doing a brand video a while back. I had this idea of wanting to catch imagery of the squirrel riding a longboard. And so I got in the squirrel suit and we went out by Wapatki. I got on the longboard and got some cool video shot of that. It is really, really, really hard to see. Like your depth perception is gone.
Are you looking through the mouth or something?
You're looking through the mouth,
Yeah,
which
okay.
is a weird screened thing that you can't see in, but you can see out kind of. Yeah.
Oh,
I have some other ideas like of trying to paraglide with it and perhaps getting you to video this and maybe wakeboarding behind my boat or, maybe just on the Colorado fly fishing, just a squirrel in the water, just fly for like some really
that one seems a little
unique
easier.
Things for sure. Paragliding, man,
There's logistical, my wheels are already turning on the logistical challenges of the video production aspects of your ask.
Right.
But I like it.
But for sure, yeah, mountain biking would be great.
Paragliding.
Yeah.
Oh man. So that kind of parlays into marketing. And you kind of have these grassroots, sort of like homegrown, non-traditional marketing over time. Did you ever really have a marketing plan when you started, or did it kind of grow out of events, or kind of what were the beginnings like?
The answer to that is very easy. No.
Okay.
There was no plan. As the company was beginning to grow, I never had it structured like I need to bring this type of person on board and this type of person to fulfill these tasks or roles or provide certain structure to the business. It was all about personality. Somebody that I was aligned with and wanted to work with every day because it's so intimate here. And so people would just present themselves. And for the most part, I would be like, oh, you want to work for me, Dylan? What can you provide for my company? And that's how I would approach it. Like, what's your skill set? What can you do for me? Okay, why don't you do that? Instead of, I need you to be digital marketing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, really, I didn't even know, my degrees in forestry. Running that tree service was basically out of a shoebox. Really pretty easy. The word of mouth was, obviously that was back when you had phone books made out of paper. And you might go door to door and hang door hangers or whatever it's called, and just like, hey, I see you have a dead tree in your front yard. We provide that service, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really easy. I didn't learn anything about marketing because I wasn't required to when I owned the tree service. It was just word of mouth was plenty of work. And so with Squirrel's Nut Butter, I really just didn't know how to structure the company. Like, I didn't really have a plan. It was all just happening organically. Everything about it wasn't created to be an anti-chafe. It wasn't created to start a company. Things just, it's like the red carpet just was rolled out for me. And, when the product was, when we were officially we were Squirrel's Nut Butter, but manufacturing out of our house, REI approached me with an email that I have hanging on the wall right there, that email, saying that they wanted to carry our product. And I love telling this story because I'm so transparent with it. I'm talking to Jeffrey Schmidt at REI, and I'm just telling him, dude, I'm so nervous right now. Like I'm talking to REI, and you want to carry this stuff? What about the name? Isn't that? He's like, oh, the name's great, man. You nailed it. And I was like, we manufacture out of our house, but we're ready to scale. We'll move out. We'll get a manufacturing space, and you're not going to. I will adapt to the load. You know, whatever your POs are, they give us purchase orders with specific shipping dates and quantities for each SKU that they want.
And those kind of go out to the distribution to the stores.
Yeah, to their own individual distribution centers that are scattered around the U.S. And then they send it to each individual
and feed
store.
the individual, right? Based on the inventory in those stores or something like that. Yeah.
And so they started out like, well, it's a little company. We're going to start you out in 12 of our stores and then rei.com as well. Our biggest anti-chafe stores, if you will. Flagstaff wasn't one of those, small and just not a lot of anti-chafe products going out that door. And I said, well, can you at least put us in our local REI store, please? I mean, why not? Let's try it out. So they did, and that was great. And then now we're in every REI, 167 or whatever. Not all of our products, but like the 2-ounce compostable tube that we can get into a little later, and the 2-ounce anti-chafe 10. Those are in all REI's brick and mortars, which is amazing. But really, just there's no sales team. I didn't have a plan of how to get into brick and mortar. Everything, I guess, because REI came to me, I kind of just felt like just let it keep coming that way. If REI is going to approach me out of the house, I can, I don't need to have a sales team knocking on doors, making phone calls and whatnot. And so really all of the growth has been organic like that. Stores contacting me, international distributors contacting me. It has been absolutely crazy. And we're at the point now that we're really big or we're getting really big, a big reach, I should say, around the world. And I'm ready to take that next step and actually have a marketing strategy and a sales team, even if it's one person, maybe not a team of one. Yeah. But I'm ready for that because while I was glad that I started out with my background in trail ultra, and that's where I kind of knew that community, and I wanted right off the bat to appear to be a big dog in the game of anti-chafe, even though we were so tiny. And a lot of people still are just surprised when they do come here. Like, this is it. This is where you guys do squirrel's nut butter with this tiny team. And there were a lot of things to learn about manufacturing and dealing with the supply chain and rolling through the pandemic and really trying to navigate that. There was a lot of hoarding going on by the companies that had, deep pockets, in the same way that the toilet paper hoarding was going on. If you had deep pockets, you would really get a bunch, whether it was ingredients or containers or whatnot. But we were able to navigate that, and get through that. And, it's really, I don't really know how we are where we are with me at the helm. I don't. I'm good at, it's important. I've always thought it was important to put a face behind the brand. Yeah. Even if it's my crazy mug, and for it to feel more human than just the product itself or the name. like everything together, the product just knocks it out of the park. That alone is just absolutely amazing. And then adding the creative branding, the organic name that came through, with Brian Marshall being Squirrel and his nut butter, and and then the funny squirrel, that's an Abert squirrel local to this region. There was a lot to learn. It's really a finicky product. Using natural ingredients, it's a lot easier to make a Vaseline type of product, or margarine, Jiffy peanut butter. Like, those things are always just perfect at any temperature, but they're not natural. And so once you go into natural, things get it's very finicky with temperatures, and then trying to, like, the 10 is perfect if it's stored in your house at 70 degrees. That's the sweet spot, and that sweet spot is the firmness of the product at that sweet spot around 70 degrees is you find this, you create this, the hardness or the softness of the product by adding more or less beeswax. And so for the tin, you have to be able to penetrate your fingers into it in order to pull it out of the tin. And of course, if it's hard, you can backblade it with your thumb or keep it in your pocket to soften it up. But it's really challenging, like for a community lube, like at an aid station, where a lot of people are going to use the same lube that has to come out of a tin. And it's rarely 70 degrees during that race. So it's stored in somebody's truck overnight with the aid station supplies. Say it gets down to 30 degrees. Stuff is rock hard. The runners come through at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 8 a.m. It's a volunteer dealing with the product. So when it's my aid station, it's like, yeah, my product, I have it in the van. It's warm. I'm aware of it constantly. Put it in the sun because it's my product. So I try to make it as awesome as possible for that aid station. But it would be simple if, for example, like Body Glide, they don't, all of their stuff is in stick form. I would love for all of our stuff to be in stick form, the compostable tube or the plastic stick. But half of our customers still continue to buy the tin. So we're going to continue manufacturing it. But it was so hard. I was just chasing my tail back and forth. It's too hard. It's too soft, and we finally have it at a spot where that's what it is. We can't, it's not perfect for everybody in every environment. And if you want to use the product, you might need to know the little tricks. The same way, you make an amazing homemade loaf of bread in the house. It's warm, and you go in the fridge, and your butter is hard because it's in the fridge and it's natural butter. You could use margarine, which is always soft, or go for that butter, and you figure out how to use that butter on that amazing bread. And that's what Squirrel's Nut Butter is really all about. Like, the product really works, and it's really good for your skin, your largest organ, and you need to just figure out the quirks and how to make it work for your environment. Yeah. And the stick would just be a slam dunk. You can apply a stick on top of Mount Everest, and I test our sticks in my dehydrator here, like at temps of 122 degrees Fahrenheit, 8 hours. So the product is just sitting at that temp for 8 hours, and pull it out, and it's still solid. It hasn't become a liquid yet. And our competitors are a liquid, which really surprises me because I thought ours would completely blow out our sticks at that temperature as well. And really, the compostable tube, super proud of, using no plastic. We use a Candelilla wax, which is a native plant to the southwest, and it has a higher melting point of about 10 degrees Fahrenheit compared to beeswax. So it makes it completely plant-based blend. It's hard to use Candelilla wax in the tin blend because it's not creamy enough. It's not soft enough. And so that's why our tin blends use beeswax. And so if not using beeswax is what you believe in, and you want to use an alternative to beeswax, then our compostable tubes would be the direction you need to go if you wanted to be 100% plant-based.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the sustainability component of this. 1 year ago, you were when we last talked, you were moving to these new options, these plastic-free options, and it may not be from a business point of view, it's not always the cheapest thing to move into these more sustainable adventures. Products, not adventures, but there are kind of adventures, right? Adventures in business.
Yeah.
But it's creating all of these other challenges, I guess, with the different waxes and how everything sorts out in the different delivery methods. When did you first get passionate about reducing plastic, and when did you decide that was going to be something you were going to move forward with?
Yeah, in the very, very beginning, it was poured. They were poured in tins, and there were no sticks. And we got an order from Runner's World for I don't know how many thousands of units, our sample units. They purchased them. We sold them at cost for them to put into their runner's gift box that they had created. I think it was kind of like the beginning that I can remember of the whole subscription thing, where you buy this box and you get all these cool different things. It could be for cycling or for running or for outdoor adventure or whatever. So we're psyched, like that's Runner's World. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And they received thousands of units. I don't know how many thousands. It could have been 6,000 or 10,000 units. And they said that the lids on many of the units had separated from the body. And we knew that, there was some inconsistency issues with the threads, with the tins we were getting here in the United States. And that was really like, oh my gosh, they left here, and we didn't think that was going to be a problem. And through shipping and handling and everything, it was a problem. And it's like, that was Runner's World. Man, that really... So I looked into plastic, and like you mentioned, it's cheaper. Everything about it for manufacturing is easier. The way we receive it, it's easier to get it ready on the trays compared to the tins. The tins come with lids already on to protect them because they're tins and they're more easier to crush during transportation.
So you got to uncap all the lids
on the
before you pour
nowadays,
on the tins. Yeah.
And the compostable tubes.
Okay. So there's more labor.
100%.
Right.
Way more touching. And so it's just simply easier and cheaper to use plastic. Everything about it is easier. And it just felt weird to be, hey, we're all natural anti-chafe. It was like all natural using plastic. Just didn't feel right. It felt like a big zit on your forehead on your wedding day or your prom picture, something like, what? Everything's cool. You kind of didn't really plan this out fully. You didn't execute the message. And
now, did you get that sense from people, or was that your own internal dialogue?
My own internal dialogue. I think some people had mentioned it, but it was my own thing. It didn't feel right. And even going to some events like Flagstaff Mountain Film Festival that we've been a part of for years, great people, and a great opportunity for filmmakers to show their work and to share stories. But anyhow, that was always about this is a plastic-free event. And then we'd be giving our samples of our all-natural anti-chafe in the plastic.
Right.
And it just was like, this just doesn't feel right. And so we explored some other manufacturers outside the United States, and the tins, they're the manufacturing, the product that we receive, the containers. It's just it's so rare to have a container that isn't usable, that's somehow dented or the threads aren't good. And also in the beginning, we weren't receiving them with a liner, so the threads weren't good. There's no liner on the inside. So during shipping, if it's 120 degrees in Phoenix, and then even hotter in the warehouse, and even hotter in the delivery vehicle with that particular box that's totally exposed to the sun, that the tin blend will fully melt out, and now you're leaking the product out.
Yeah.
So it's two things. One, we needed a liner, and two, we needed the threads to just be the consistency of the manufacturing of the tin to just be really dialed. And so we found that, and we actually then explored getting tins pre-printed ahead of time, silk screened on, or that might not be the right term. And that saved a lot of labor because we were always putting our stickers on, and we created our stickers to have a tamper-proof seal, so you could see if anybody had opened the product. And so it was basically just our top label with a little tamper strip that then connected to the bottom label, and there was a perforation when you pulled the lid off. So now getting them pre-printed, and there's actually color on the side, and we don't have one. Oh, you have a saddle butter.
Yeah.
So you're actually, the being able to see the color on the side of the lid, the blue on the side, when it's sitting on the shelf, it just looks, that part.
Whereas this was
it was
black,
just tin color. Just
I see.
Silver.
Because your label was over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be you could just see this a sticker, and then this tin, and then another sticker, and this weird tamper strip, which seemed great at the time. It really did. It seemed like this is awesome. Look what we're doing. And then it just seemed like we can do better than that. And so this look, working with Annalise to design all of our different tin, the content on it, and the color and everything, I think they look super sharp. They look great on the shelf, the counter of the store or whatever. They catch your eye, and it just look to me. It finally, our tins, they just look, and we have a pressure sensitive seal now, so that's when you take the lid off, that's your tamper thing that you can see if somebody's opened it before when you pull it off.
Right. Yeah, I think I noticed that on this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's how you reworked that, which is probably more common in like cosmetics.
It's very
and stuff,
common,
right?
Yeah.
Because you probably, from like a regulatory standpoint, you're probably closest to like a cosmetic.
Yeah, we're cosmetic.
So what kind of regulatory checks are
we
there?
don't have any, because we are a cosmetic, and we don't make a health claim.
Okay. Right.
So depending on the country, you need to be careful with, you can't say that it works for eczema. You can explain that through education, that it was created for eczema, created to heal damaged skin.
But our intended purpose,
right,
our claimed purpose is not.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's okay to use restorative and anti-chafe, but so we're not under the FDA. Yeah.
That simplifies things.
Yeah. It really does. And that seemed scary at first. Like, wait, is everything okay?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your first, when you went international.
Yeah.
Was this a big moment for you?
Absolutely. So, Rob Goyen from Australia contacted me, and he said, he followed us on social media, and he liked the vibe of the branding and the community that we were building here in the United States. And he wanted to be a distributor in Australia. And he said, not only that, but I want to come and meet you. And I'd like to hop on a plane and come meet you. And I just thought, for sure he must have a list of 10 companies he's going to meet with and, make it worthwhile, because that's a pretty long airplane ride.
Yeah.
And he came out here, and it was just to meet me. and he came in here, and we had just moved into to our space here, painting the walls, and he came in here and he gave me a boomerang from Australia, and a cool cutting board. Amazing. And some Vegemite, and he became our first international distributor. It's pretty awesome. I felt like I can't even believe this, because I didn't reach out to anyone, and Rob came to me, and it's a great. As human beings, we're very much aligned. It felt great to be with him, and it's been wonderful. And then it just keeps. He's the only distributor that's actually come to see me.
Yeah.
Now we just do it with video calls to vet.
But it showed his commitment.
Yes.
Like, that used to be a big thing in businesses, and I don't know if it was like definitely pre-Zoom. You could have phone calls when you were making big business deals, but when you were making international business deals, there was something to flying out and meeting the person and shaking their hand,
absolutely,
and giving them a hug or whatever, and it showed the commitment. And so, did he fly into Flagstaff or Phoenix?
He flew into. I think he flew into Phoenix.
Okay.
And then got a rental car.
Yeah. And then just like turned around and went home after
that?
Yes.
It was 36 hours on U.S. soil.
Didn't even hit the Grand Canyon?
Nope.
He just was here to do the deal. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's...
and there really wasn't even a deal to do, because I didn't have anything set up.
Yeah.
It was like a hug and a handshake, and like, let's do this, man.
Yeah.
Let's explore this together and build this brand. He's been great. And I can't wait to get over there eventually and see where he lives and explore all that. I have yet to. That is on my list, to visit my distributors, go to their countries, and meet them in person, and then tour the city or tour the country.
Yeah, what a cool opportunity.
Yeah,
this is an upside of social media, right? You said he found you on social media, so
as well as REI.
Right. They found you on social as well. Yeah. So like, social media can be a benefit, right?
Yes.
I was kind of harping on it earlier, but it can have I believe it has a dark side, and it can also have a light side, right? It can help to connect people and enable people to find your product and get it to the people that need it, right? And have this positive impact. And it can also have this negative impact of overwhelming. Well, for me, it can have that. It's all personalized, right? But in general, it can have that impact as well. So it's all about like moderating it. So I just wanted to clarify that from before.
Oh, right? It is good and bad, without a doubt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's not all bad for a business.
Well, yeah, it's just the entry level now for marketing for business,
Right.
And some of the other things that you've done, I think, your ambassador program that I'm a part of.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I was so excited when I first got into the program. I was like, because it was one of the first. I was really going into this. I was the seasoned bike packer at that time. It was before I had transitioned to the endurance studio, and you were like the first official, official sponsor for me. So it was such a great feeling to be like representing something that I'm all in, ride or die, all about, right? And it was just so cool. So, but I think that's an important part. You say you don't do marketing, but that is a grassroots marketing effort, right? A guerrilla marketing effort.
Yes.
And those are the strongest voices probably are your ambassadors.
Right.
Right. So when did you come up with that program?
In the very beginning, it probably was in 2016. I just started, it was mostly ambassadors in the Phoenix area that I would see at like Mogollon Monster or something. Mogollon Monster is a 100-miler here in Arizona.
A very, very difficult.
Yeah, very challenging.
Difficult,
mm-hmm. And I would give people product and give them a shirt to wear, and there was never a contract or expectations or you need to do this and this, and this. For me, it was just like, just organically spread the brand awareness and the benefits that you find and different uses. And it doesn't have to be on social media, just talking to your friends and your family. And that's where I hope people speak up. And I think that they do. It's great to have an ambassador that has 100,000 followers or whatever. That is absolutely amazing for sure. But it's really nice when it's just in conversation, it's brought up. And so, yeah, it's just kind of grown. And I realized truly the value of it, and the fact that we don't have a marketing strategy or a marketing team or anything. I was like, well, that is a way to, besides our sampling, we sample about 50,000 units a year right now to races and different events. And like, that's a good way to, besides that sampling, that's a good way to continue to help with that brand awareness. And it's huge now. I mean, it's really big. Our United States ambassador team is very big, and it's everybody's excited. There's no money in it, you guys get some lube and you get to wear team swag, but there's like a lot of excitement around it, or maybe some sort of, I don't know, a family vibe of I'm part of something. Especially when it's, you're not a Solomon athlete or a Hoka athlete. It's like, you're just somebody in your community that likes running 5 and 10Ks once in a while and just likes going for walks with their dogs.
Yeah. And
using your product and talking about it in their community. That's just, it goes a long ways.
Yeah.
I find the ambassador program is very valuable.
Yeah. It makes it so accessible.
Yeah.
For average people.
Right.
There's, when it's like pro athletes, elite level athletes are very intimidating for me.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be a part of something that you don't have to be a pro athlete,
Right. Yeah.
I can help other people.
For example, for running, if you're going to get shoes, you're running really fast because the company's not, they're not after just people that go for walks with their dogs. Like, that's a very expensive shoe. We just gave you $140 shoe for you to walk your dog. You better have results. You better have the social media influence. You better have all those things. And it's nice to just to have a lube company that, we've kind of tried to brand it as an adventure lube. So it's just for whatever you're doing in life. Whatever your adventure is, bring us along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love the ambassador program. It's pretty hard. For sure. It's a lot of people to manage, a lot of different personalities and whatnot, but very valuable and appreciated.
What about the newsletter? That was a more recent thing. Timber Talks, I think.
Yeah. Tuesday's tips with Timber and Tails or something.
Okay.
I actually forget. So our Jen Laughlin, social media manager, she was interviewing our different ambassadors or athletes, and we were doing a newsletter every other week, and there's definitely an interesting balance. Some companies you get, if you're subscribed, you're like, oh my gosh, who's doing this? Like, how big is your team to be putting this stuff together and hitting me, every day or multiple times a day or whatever. And there's a balance of people ignoring the newsletter because it's the cadence is too frequent, and then not often enough. And also balancing just what do we want to present in that newsletter? What are people reading? What do they want to read in their busy day and their inbox is full? Is it all just product stuff for a little bloop in their mind, like Compostable 2 with a nice photo and dogs running through the field? And that's nice to open. Or do they want to read something deep, a big adventure? Or maybe there's a balance of both. And, we struggle with how many employees I have with being able to put a ton of energy into that. So we're gonna bring that back to the surface again, since we just brought Jade on board, and it's challenging because I receive so many, as you and everyone, so many emails. Where's the balance? What do you really want to see that makes you want to open that? Like, not another email. Those guys, what are they doing?
Right.
I don't want to be that.
Right.
I want to be an asset to their inbox.
Right.
Or something like when I post on Facebook myself, I want it to be something positive, not a woe is me, I'm having a bad day. Like, then I would rather go to my friends and get that hug that I need and that support, not to 5,000 people on Facebook I don't know. So I guess my point is I just want it to be find the balance of it's a positive thing that I'm putting into their inbox. And I think that's challenging.
Yeah. It can cross over into information saturation, right? With that. And that's the challenge for anyone who's trying to get their word out on an initiative or whatever in the world of saturated inboxes.
Right.
I mean, I personally think that there's a split. There's both. People are being engineered in a way to only intake short form information. But then there's also a whole nother group of people like me who long form podcasts are perfect, especially endurance athletes. Yeah. It's kind of self-feeding. The way I see your business is if you did long form information, people can download it and go listen to it while they're out on adventures.
Exactly. I know.
Right. Because that's what I do while I'm out. I just consume podcasts because I can't seem to get away from that's what fills the boredom states like we talked about earlier. Like I have to always be doing something. That's why I'm racing right now, because when you're racing, you're always moving. You're always obligated to either eating or sleeping or moving. Right. Those are your choices. You're never just sitting there. Sure. If you're sitting there, you're doing something wrong. Right. Maybe later on in life, I'll find that spot. Right. But right now I want to tinker. It's my my way of mind tinkering. And so I fill that void with podcasts, and I just consume long form podcasts, and I'm listening to days and days and days of podcast content. Right? Really? Wow. Yeah. And I know that there's a huge market for people consuming long form content and a desire for longer bits of information. Now, I don't necessarily know if that comes in the form of like an email newsletter, right? I'm not sure how that kind of transitions over to that, but it's an interesting, I think for you, just as long as you stay true, like what's been you've doing so far has been working for you, even though you think it hasn't, or not that you think it hasn't, but you said earlier, I don't know who put me at the helm of this ship, but I think you're doing all the right things. Yeah. Well,
thank you for saying that. And I just think that there's so much, the potential is just beyond where we're at right now. That's all. When I say I don't know what I'm doing, like I know something, I'm doing something right, and the community is backing me up with that for sure. I'm doing something right, but there's bringing on the right people to take us to the next level is definitely important. Right. It's got to be the right people. It's not just laborers tasking. Like you need to. You really, I don't know.
There's a phrase called imposter syndrome.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And with athletes, they get it a lot. Where you're like, really, this is me. This is the thing. Right. Right. Or it's like business or whatever, right? It can be all kinds of different things, in success in any way, where you kind of have this, self-doubt, I guess, but you really are the expert, you know, like you really are the person that got you to the dance,
I'm the lube master.
You're the lube legend.
I have a jumpsuit that we say Lube Master.
Okay.
I like Lube Legend as well.
It's the alliteration. I'm kind of addicted to alliterations.
So Tim Tweetmeyer, he at the most recent Western States Lottery, and I was drawing names electronically, and he said that he introduced me as the Lord of Lube.
There you go. It's perfect.
Something.
You got all kinds of superhero-esque names floating around. Oh man. All right. Let's jump into some of the rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
All right. And I kind of modified these just a little bit. I might throw some curveballs in here a little bit. So what's your favorite endurance or outdoor adventuring food?
I love like a really good whole wheat bread with Tillamook medium cheddar cheese on the outside, meaning the between two big slices of Tillamook cheese, I'll put avocado in. And then in the pack, just let it be, not try to protect it from getting smushed. I love that. I love that. You don't need any condiment. It's just becomes perfect, especially if it's a warmer day. I don't know. And then, of course, dried mangoes.
Okay.
Absolutely love freeze-dried mangoes. And it never hurts to throw a payday bar in the pack because it's so heat tolerant. I love Snickers, but payday is just so heat tolerant.
That's so funny. The sandwich, the avocado and cheese sandwich, can probably last a little while. Yeah. Right? You can get a day or so out of that, maybe.
Yeah.
And be okay.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Seems pretty.
There's no meat in there.
Right.
Yeah.
The cheese will last a while. That's the avocado's fine. The bread's fine.
Right.
The paydays I featured. I learned about paydays and their heat tolerance on the Arizona Trail Race last year.
Tell me.
Well, someone on the van ride down, I took the shuttle down to the start line, and someone had kind of half mentioned it, and it was record-breaking heat this year, and so literally everything, our skin was melting, everything was melting off. It was brutal. Few days going up Reddington Pass into Mount Lemmon, just cooking, and all I bought was I bought one payday, and I realized it didn't melt on the first day, and then that's basically what I survived on for the rest of the trip, because it's in your top tube bag, so it's just right there in the sun, and I mean everything cooks in there. So it's a good call on all of those items. The naturally squished avocado sandwich.
Oh yeah, and it's got to be the Tillamook.
Yeah, the
Tillamook cheese. That's the good
medium,
stuff.
right?
Yeah, the medium.
Yeah. This might be a little bit of a layup question, but what's your spirit animal?
On my first double crossing, I guess now referred to rim to rim to rim, that I did, it was super hot. I think it was tail end of July. The thermometer's pegged down there at Phantom Ranch at 130. Oh. And I rolled through, I think I left at maybe 2 a.m. or something, rolled down the South Kaibab and tagged the North Rim. Everything's fine. And coming back down, get through Cottonwood, and things are really, really getting hot. And I'm rolling through the box, which is a narrow corridor of rock with Bright Angel Creek, nice and cold, refreshing, just right there. It's almost like flames with this little cool thing right there, but the trail isn't there. You're not feeling the coolness of that creek, and you would have to get off the trail and hike down to the creek. And on that double crossing, I went into that timeless place. I was so hot, and I had an out-of-body experience in the box, and my memory is that I like looked up at a red-tailed hawk in the sky. I honestly don't know if it was real or not. And I became that red-tailed hawk looking at this human figure jogging down the trail. And again, I was nuked. I was so hot. I'd stopped, sweating, and things were pretty hot. But that was my first out of body experience, and so I would definitely say the red-tailed hawk.
Wow. Yeah, that's your first of many out of body experiences. Yeah, when you push yourself to extreme limits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had others since, but that was definitely just like, wow,
wild.
I'm looking down at myself. So ended up getting a chest piece of a red-tailed hawk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Next question? What's your endurance superpower? Or a business endurance superpower?
I like to keep desire on the front burner. And whether I'm back in the day when I ran 100 milers and you're feeling awful and you're tired and you're just like, what? You're barfing, you can't keep food down, your calories, you're just on fumes of figuring out how to keep calories on board, which is like, if you can do a soda like Coke, that's a great way to stay on fumes. But if you can keep desire on the front burner, like, this is what I wanted. I chose to be here. This isn't war. This is a choice. And I think you can really go through a lot of turmoil and struggle if that's always present. And if you lose sight of that, just reminding myself to bring that forward. Desire.
Yeah. Extremely powerful, just smiling. Right?
Yeah.
When you're in those
Oh
states,
my gosh, yeah.
Can
my goodness.
Bring up that reminder of desire and I don't know, just get you out of that state.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that just can exist in that state all the time, and I envy those people.
Sure, yeah.
They're usually like Courtney,
yeah.
DeWalter.
And that's the goal, but you can't, maybe you want to do the handstand in the middle of the room. That's the ultimate goal, but you can still do a handstand against the wall and let your feet kick off. And, your goal is to ultimately just do a handstand in the middle of the room. Knowing that, like, what do I need the wall a little bit. And then I kick off. I'm feeling the balance. That is what I'm working towards.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually maybe you can do the handstand in the middle of the room.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your worst crash, fall, or wipeout that you've ever had?
I ate shit on the bike back, it's probably sophomore in high school. Back then it was pretty common to do century rides, organized century rides. There weren't races. It was just, here, do the century. And so I was doing back-to-back centuries. Saturday I did a century, and then Sunday there was another century in California that I hit. And it was early on in the day two, probably within the first 10 miles, going through the rollers. And I came off this downhill, and I was riding with my buddy, Bill, an much older man. And I overlapped his wheel, not thinking much about it. We're pretty tight. We're on road bikes, and we're rolling tight.
Mm-hmm.
And he swerved to miss a little pothole in the road and took my front wheel out from me. And we were rolling about maybe 25 miles an hour. And I just landed so quickly on my right shoulder and my head. And I broke my collarbone. I was unconscious for a while, and ambulance ride and all this stuff. And that kind of, the shoulder was fine. I mean, nobody likes a broken clavicle, but getting knocked out was like that. I'm not into that. I wasn't a football player. I don't like that kind of jostling of the brain, and then being knocked out. You know, it was real. Mm-hmm. That's probably the worst. You know, I crashed once. As a little kid, I made this little jump on the road. We lived up on the top of this hill, and I made this little jump. My buddy was down there to watch me, and hauled ass down the hill and went off. And the jump wasn't even big. It was probably maybe a foot high, but it was really moving quick on my little BMX bike. And I went right over the handlebars and I had road rash just all over the one side. And I remember Mom put me in the bath to clean up my road rash. And that bath was just like, and I was so young, and I don't think I'd ever felt pain like that before. Road rash like that was just like,
yeah.
Otherwise, I've been pretty fortunate with accidents like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who inspires you?
I got to go with my brother. His influence with influencing me to adventure, climb, be in the outside, be in the outdoors, being comfortable with myself. And then he's a role model for leadership for me as a race director for Western States and ski patrol up in Oregon and you know, Waldo 100K and whatnot. And I like his leadership style, and yeah, I'll go with Craig.
Nice. Do you listen to podcasts? And if you do, what's your favorite one?
I do. So I was kind of addicted to How I Built This with Guy Raz. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs building stuff, and it might be in the process of the build-up when you get interviewed, or afterwards, after the acquisition, what went wrong, what went right. Here's how we struggled in the beginning, and now we're millionaires or whatever. I kind of almost got addicted to that, especially in the beginning of building Squirrel's Nut Butter. And then the long form, like you love doing, and I really appreciate that. Joe Rogan's all over the place with who he brings on, but when who he brings on, when I'm aligned with that conversation, I love that style because there's no bookmark to end it. Mm-hmm. Lex Fridman, I love, depending on who he has. I like that style. And of course, Dirtbag Diaries, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And what you have started here, I think is, you know, both your interview style, what you bring to the table as well. I think it has a lot of potential, and, you know, you're just getting started with this particular part of what you're creating, you know, this long form podcast style. But I like this a lot.
Thanks, man.
This has a ton of potential.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to talk to really cool people like you. I mean, today's conversation has blown my mind. Like all the canyon stuff, and like I came in here thinking we were gonna just talk about squirrels. Like, you know, I had a list of a few things, mm-hmm. but just digging into your past is just it's really, really cool to learn people's stories.
Yeah,
see how
I know everybody has a story.
Yeah, so
taking the time to listen.
Yeah, it's and that's something that I know I don't do as much as I should, mm-hmm. and this forces me to. And it's really fulfilling.
And providing the space for me, for example, to actually articulate your questions, and they're kind of all over the place for me. It's nice to put words to that. It's like it's a benefit to me. Hopefully your listeners enjoy, you know, the conversation that we had. But it's also really important the experience that I just had during this is like, it's very valuable to explore all those and try to articulate those things. And, you know,
It's awesome.
I'm not a book writer, so it's not like this stuff is just ready to rock and roll.
Right.
And you provided a space that I could get into flow state at times, like really deep flow state where I'm like, I was completely timeless during this podcast at times. And so you are creating that space for folks to dig deep.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Don't quit.
Yeah. There's already been ups and downs, you know, but this is the endurance sport of endurance sports, right? Is keeping these things going, like keep doing it every week.
Right.
So, and I wouldn't be able to do it without people that are cool and willing to come on and pontificate, you know? What's the worst water source that you've ever drank from?
I don't have a good story around that.
It's probably a good thing.
I think I am very, very fortunate, and like perhaps being in, like swimming in water that was gross, maybe Waterholes Canyon before it's closed now, but like some of that water was really, really stagnant. Like, wow. And another one, this is kind of pivoting off of your last guest, Andy, when he talked about drinking out of the cow water, the dead cow, is I was doing a Yampa River trip, and it was in the spring, and there was ice upstream that completely covered the upper part of the headwaters of the Yampa, and a herd of cattle they were crossing the river, and they broke through the ice, and the whole herd ended up drowning, and they were scattered all over on our river trip of dead cows floating and just in, bloated and eddies and just, but I wasn't drinking that water.
Yeah.
But just when Andy said that, it was like, I can't even imagine drinking out of that. It was weird to seeing like, what are all those cows? What do they experience? Like, all just being cows walking across the river, and you drop through, and all the cows are dead.
Yeah.
I don't think cows are good swimmers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh man. And the last question, one piece of advice you would give to a new endurance athlete or new business owner?
I'll roll in with new business owner. I think, and we've touched on this earlier, making sure that your intention for running the business isn't just to build up your bank account. Your intention is to connect with your customers, create a community with them, and like try to understand them and be part of them, be part of that community, I think is incredibly important. And for me in particular, putting a face to the name, to the brand, really separates you from just a big company that makes a great product. Like if you can actually put a face to what that's all about, whether it's a Burton snowboard or, whatever, your bike, the bags. I think that's super important. Like it lets people think about your brand, and actually they're wanting now to support a human being instead of just they're buying it because the product's really good. Like it adds depth to what you're providing.
Everybody wishes, I think that's the ultimate goal for, most companies. And it's so difficult to achieve that because you can't just throw money at that.
Right. And it's funny because all the other part about running a business is my weakness. And putting the face to the brand comes naturally. So if I need to figure out how to do that more, do it more globally in person, and keep giving out all those hugs.
Yeah.
I love hugging.
Yeah.
It's an energy exchange that I really have always thought is good. And not everybody brings it to the table and matches the hug. But when you meet somebody that does match the hug, or it's not uncomfortable for them, it's kind of magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sexual. It's just like this, your hearts are together.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to hugging, it can feel really awkward. Like, you're in my personal space, man. What are you doing? Like, I don't know. There's nothing weird. We could fist bump. That's totally cool.
Yeah. 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 I have a pretty big bubble, like personal bubble. And yeah, I'm trying to get better with like things like hugging my friends more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's really inspirational. You're really an inspiration. Everything you've done here is just amazing. It's been amazing to talk with you today and learn more about your history and the flow state and your goals and the business and the challenges and everything. It's really cool. So I appreciate all your time, and I appreciate everything you're doing. Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Dylan. This has been a great opportunity, and I found tremendous value in however long we've been chatting. This is really good for me as well.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
I need you to come back on after you run the river.
Yes.
And you fulfill that. You check
February.
that off your box.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll maybe get a recap story on that one.
Going down with the Dory.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Chris.
Send good vibes.
Yep.
Everyone.
Sending good vibes.
Yeah.
So, and go check out Squirrel's nut butter. I've said it enough. I'll say it again. It's an amazing product. Great people that work here. Locally made. Go check it out.
And if you live in Flagstaff or you're here to see the canyon, swing by. Give you a quick tour. It doesn't take long.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Well, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all.